Chapter 400, Elder. Another page. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. He had gone through a lot of trouble to teach Mu Xueqing, even going to the extent of imparting the Heaven's Path saber art to her. Even so, he didn't really expect to earn the other party's earnest gratitude and form a new golden page. Zhang Xian had no idea what other effects there were to this book of Heaven's Path, but its ability to raise Zhang Xian's soul depth easily and assimilate the contents of the books gathered in the Library of Heaven's Path into his knowledge already made it a priceless treasure. Teacher, regardless of where you go, I'll definitely look for you. Making a vow in her heart, Mu Xueqing led the crowd away. The room soon chilled down with their departure. However, Lu Chong remained in the room, and he stood on the spot impassively. Zhang Xian was about to speak, but the other party interrupted him. Teacher, I have nothing to tie me down here anymore. Wherever you go, I'll follow you. Lu Chong's eyes reflected his determination. After a long moment of hesitation, Zhang Xian nodded, all right. Zhang Xian was well aware of the character of this student of his. Knowing that there was no use persuading him, he eventually relented. After dealing with that, Zhang Xian walked out of the room. At that moment, Lu Shi stepped forward with a worried frown. Are you going to keep them kneeling? Zheng Yang, Yuan Tao, Wang Ying, and his other students were still kneeling motionlessly in the main hall. Did he intend to keep them kneeling like that? Their cultivation has progressed too quickly, and this has added to their complacency. Making them kneel will help build their character so that they won't act so rashly in the future. Zhang Xian said. Actually, Zhang Xian's rage had already died down. The poisoning incident didn't cause much harm, and his students already knew their mistakes. However, he still chose to neglect them and keep them kneeling. The reason for it was simple: he wanted to build their character. Only with a strong character will they be able to reach greater heights in the future. Taking Lu Chong for example, the tragedy in his clan had made his mental fortitude as tough as steel. Even though his cultivation had progressed swiftly in the past few days, he didn't show the slightest arrogance or complacency. On the other hand, Zheng Yang, Yuan Tao, Wang Ying, and the others were entitled to the best education from the very start, and they have never faced any major problems in their cultivation before. Zhang Xian thought that it was about time to teach them the difficulty of cultivating so that they wouldn't get complacent. That's good. I've neglected this matter, Lu Shi nodded. At this moment, he truly felt impressed by this senior of his. When he first met his senior, he thought that he was still slightly immature in his actions. However, at this moment, he already possessed on the disposition of a teacher, and every single action he took aligned with his duties as a teacher. As a teacher, one shouldn't just focus all of one's efforts on the cultivation of one's student, one must also reinforce their mental fortitude. Using building a palace as an analogy, one's mental fortitude would be like the foundation of the construction. Without the foundation, no matter how many bricks one laid on top and what kind of technologies one utilized, there would still be a limit to its final height. On top of that, it would be unable to weather the winds of a storm as well. Zhang Xian made use of this matter to sternly punish the others, but the truth was that he was trying to grind their will without a bone-piercing chill. How could there be the fragrance of the plum blossoms? I just hope that they can understand your efforts, Lu Shi sighed. Sometimes, students were unable to understand why their teachers were so harsh on them, and this incited a rebellious streak in them. By the time of falling out occurred, it was already too late for regrets. Zhang Xian nodded. After chatting with Lu Shi for a moment longer, he walked out of the residence and settled some other miscellaneous matters. The great Herb King and Liao Sun had already left the capital. The Ji clan had sent many generous gifts in apology, and Zhang Xian kept them all in his storage ring. In truth, the matter with Ji clan wasn't anything much, and there was nothing for Zhang Xian to pursue. By the time Zhang Xian had settled everything, it was already late at night. The next day, he went to the Physician Guild and swept through all of the books in their library. He went on to do the same for the other guilds in the kingdom, storing them inside the Library of Heaven's Path. He busied himself throughout the day, and only upon sunset did he return to the residence. Time to begin. With a thought, the golden book appeared right before Zhang Xian. The two 4-star master teachers had specifically brought up their desire to meet Yang Xian before him, and dragging the matter out wasn't a solution. If Zhang Xian didn't want to be exposed by the other party, he had to accrue a huge mountain of knowledge to make up for his lack thereof. In any case, he had 2 golden pages now, so using one wasn't too much of a heartache. Assimilate, boom. As soon as the thought appeared in his mind, a violent buzz sounded. The golden page radiated a bright glow, and all of the books in the Library of Heaven's Path immediately started infusing their contents into his head. Unable to withstand the huge surge of information, Zhang Xian's vision turned dark and he fainted. In the Physician Guild, Physician Qiang Feng stared helplessly at the unconscious physician Mu Hong lying on the floor. This ex-guild leader had gone to the Lin clan to cure the other party of their poison, but not only did he fail to resolve their poison, he even got afflicted with it. For a 3-star physician to land himself in such a state, it was indeed shameful. Physician Qiang Feng, is there any way to cure him? Physician Mu Hong's student, 2-star physician Xia Shunda, looked at Qiang Feng nervously. Physician Qiang Feng shook his head. I've tried all methods, but the poison he's afflicted with is simply too formidable. I am also helpless before it. He had carefully examined this poison, and he realized that it was able to fuse easily with all Zhenqi. This problem had left him completely stumped. Unless... Xia Shunda's face tensed up. Unless guild leader Lu, or rather, Zhang Shi, treats him personally. Given how he was able to solve so many problems on the wall of dilemma, his aptitude for the way of medicine is truly frightening. This poison is formidable, but he might have a solution for it. Physician Qiang Feng said. Zhang Xian, upon hearing this name, Xia Shunda's face immediately sank, and he howled deeply. His student is the one who planted the poison. He must have been in cahoots with the master of the poison hall. Back then, he had clearly seen how Hall Master Liao treated Zhang Shi so respectfully that it seemed as though the latter was his own father. During the period when Physician Mu Hong was afflicted with lethal poison, the master of the poison hall appeared in the city. It was hard to believe that there wasn't any correlation between the two. Audacious. Such words cannot be spouted without evidence. Physician Qiang Feng berated sternly, Zhang Shi is a master teacher and a grandmaster physician. How can he be in cahoots with the poison hall? Without evidence? So many people have seen it with their own eyes. Xia Shunda harumphed coldly, what wall of dilemma and guild leader, Pui. How can someone who has dealings with the poison hall be worthy to serve as the leader of our physician guild? In fact, I think that he might not even know medicine at all. He might have prepared the answers to the problems on the wall of dilemma beforehand. Otherwise, how could he solve so many problems within such a short period of time? Seeing his own teacher lying in a coma on the floor, Xia Shunda couldn't hold back his rage anymore, and he bellowed furiously. Every single one of those questions on the wall of dilemma was extremely difficult. Even if Zhang Xian were to start learning from the womb, given how he wasn't even 20 yet, how much could he learn? Clearly, someone had given him the answers beforehand, and all he had to do was to copy them down. Otherwise, given how skilled he was, why hadn't he treated anyone before? It's worth noting that the issue with the guardian beast is a state secret, so not many people know of it. This physician Qiang Feng hesitated. Back then, when Zhang Shi came to the physician guild, he was also present. The fact that the other party could solve 19 questions on the wall of dilemma despite being ignorant of basic common knowledge already made the entire incident rather doubtful. Speaking of which, physician Qiang Feng also held his suspicions. This kind of person is unworthy of being the master of our physician guild. I hope that physician Qiang Feng can host a meeting with the elders to strip that fellow of his position as the guild leader so that he can't go around fooling others. Halfway through Xia Shunda's incitement, a middle-aged man rushed into the room. As soon as he entered, the middle-aged man shouted excitedly, "Physician Qingfeng and Physician Xia Shunda, there's a response on the wall of dilemma." There's a response. Did he get the final question wrong? Xia Shunda's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly turned his gaze to the middle-aged man. A few days ago, Zhang Shi provided the solutions for 20 difficult illnesses in a row. However, the other side of the wall of dilemma had been unable to give an accurate judgment on the final answer he provided. Initially, it said that it would take 10 days for it to assess the validity of the answer. However, the headquarters seemed to have operated more efficiently than it expected, and it had already given a reply today. Wrong? The middle-aged man froze for a moment before hurriedly shaking his head. It doesn't mention whether it's wrong or not, doesn't mention. The two physicians were stunned. Since the headquarters had given its reply, it should have already come to a verdict on the validity of Zhang Shi's answer. What did he mean by saying it wasn't mentioned? Then what's written on it? Xia Shunda couldn't help but ask. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before replying. It says that it'll confer Lu Qiang as an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild, and as for his exact ranking, a test will be conducted when his cultivation reaches a certain level. Confer him as an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild. Physician Qingfeng and Physician Xia Shunda glanced at one another, and their bodies trembled. Blood nearly spurted out of their mouths. The heck? What was going on? The Myriad Kingdom Alliance, that was a top-notch existence that stood even above the conferred kingdoms. The elders of the Physician Guild there were at minimum 4-star. Conferring Lu Qiang as their elder? At this moment, Xia Shunda could only feel a piercing heat on his face, and it felt as though someone had slapped him forcefully. He had just said that the other party was unworthy of being their guild leader, and the next moment the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Physician Guild sent a message indicating their interest in having him as an elder of their guild. The heck? You must be doing this on purpose. Xia Shunda's face turned scarlet, and he nearly cried on the spot. There was a peculiar room in the Tianwu Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion where a snowy white wall towered. Communication wall. At this moment, Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master Qiang was standing in front of the wall. Reporting to Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master Qiang, the reparations of the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall are completed. Elder Zhu walked in and clasped his fist. Good. Pavilion Master Qiang heaved a sigh of relief. The sudden shaking of Kong Shi's statue and the fall of innumerable ancestral tablets, such a matter has never occurred before. Ling Shi, do you have any idea what happened then? Su Shi frowned. That day, they were all present on the spot. Kong Shi suddenly fell, resulting in violent tremors throughout the hall. Even until now, they were still unable to make sense out of the incident. They had considered the possibility of Zhang Shi winning the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors, but eventually, they shook their heads in denial. That was Kong Shi's statue. His lingering will was infused in it, how could it possibly acknowledge anyone easily? Rumor had it that there was once a 9-star master teacher who tried to acknowledge Kong Shi as his teacher, only to be rejected. To reject a 9-star master teacher and take in a 2-star master teacher instead? You must be jesting. Not yet. Ling Shi couldn't comprehend the situation either. Shaking his head, he picked up a brush and smiled. However, there's no need to worry. I intend to ask the headquarters now. Even though we don't understand the situation, the guild leader and the other elders might know a thing or two. Hurry up, Su Shi nodded. Just as Ling Shi was considering how he should phrase his words, the massive wall before them suddenly lit up, and a row of words appeared. Rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell. Someone in the Myriad King Alliance has refused the acknowledgement of the ancestors after passing the Master Teacher examination. If the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall of any branch has collapsed, report swiftly. Teacher Acknowledgement Hall, collapsed? Su Shi, Ling Shi, Pavilion Master Qiang, and Elder Zhu were dumbstruck. Chapter 401, paying respects to Yang Shi, someone had rejected the acknowledgement of the ancestors after passing the master-teacher examination? You must be pulling my leg. Is there such an insane figure in the world? Winning the acknowledgement of a senior is a huge blessing. Reject? Who in the world is it? After a moment of daze, Pavilion Master Qiang nearly went insane. Mo Hongyi's feat of winning the acknowledgement from a single ancestor had already broken the record of Tianwu Kingdom for the past 300 years, and it had incited a wave of excitement within the Master-Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Qiang also felt honored. He would be able to keep his head up in the other Master-Teacher Pavilions of the other kingdoms in the future. Yet, for someone to reject the ancestors' acknowledgement, it was fortunate that Mo Hongyi wasn't around. If he were to learn of this news, wouldn't he spew blood and faint on the spot? That's impossible. Su Shi and Ling Shi were perplexed as well. The acknowledgement from the ancestors would grant one with a unique aura that would raise one's soul depth swiftly. There wasn't a single master-teacher who could reject such a benefit. Wait, the headquarters said that if there's a teacher acknowledgement hall of any branch has collapsed, report swiftly the teacher acknowledgement hall here has collapsed. Ling Shi was the first to realize this matter, and his face tensed. They didn't know what rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell, meant, but since the headquarters had asked about the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall, it wasn't difficult for them to deduce the matter. The headquarters wasn't so idle as to do unnecessary things. Since they asked about the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall, it must have something to do with these 9 words. You mean that the person who rejected the acknowledgement of the ancestors might be in this guild? Su Shi's eyes widened, and his voice sounded a little hoarse. In the past few days, only Mo Shi and Zhang Shi had passed the examinations. The former had managed to win the acknowledgement of one elder, while the latter caused Kong Shi's statue to fall over and the entire teacher acknowledgement hall to collapse. Even though the entire incident was bewildering, they didn't see him reject the ancestors. Let's ask about it. Confused, Ling Shi dabbed the brush in ink and wrote, "What does rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell, mean?" Wang. The words disappeared, and not too long later, a radiance flashed, and another line of words appeared on the communication wall. Not absorbing the unique aura granted by the ancestors, rejecting their goodwill, upon realization, the group shuddered once more. To reject the ancestors and induce their sorrowful cries, how incredible must a figure be to do such stuff? They stared at one another in shock, bewildered over who had that kind of guts that do such a thing. At that moment, the wall before them shone once more, and a few more line of words appeared. 2 days ago, at Shu Hour 1, he rejected the acknowledgement of all of the ancestors and Kong Shi, resulting in the shaking of the statue. Under such circumstances, it's highly possible for the teacher acknowledgement hall to collapse. If there's the shaking of the Kong Shi's statue or the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall in any branch, report swiftly. 2 days ago, at Shu Hour, that seems to be around the timing when Zhang Shi is seeking acknowledgement from the elders. Su Shi trembled. Indeed. The trembling of the statue and the collapsing of the teacher acknowledgement hall, could the one who incited the sorrowful cries of the ancestors be Zhang Shi? Ling Shi's body swayed vigorously. He was just thinking which incredible figure it could be, when it turned out to be the fellow just around them. Are you for real? It should be true. Upon thinking of something, Pavilion Master Qiang smiled bitterly. Oh. Hearing Pavilion Master Qiang affirm the matter, the 2 4-star master teacher turned to look at him. A similar situation happened 2 days ago. The ancestral tablets of the teacher acknowledgement hall trembled and Kong Shi's statue moved as well. After pondering for a moment, Pavilion Master Qiang explained the situation that happened 2 days ago. The trembling of myriad tokens. Celestial Master Teacher. Trembling of Kong Shi. This is Kong Shi admits a disciple, the student of the sage. But more importantly, he was rejected. Su Shi and Ling Shi was on the verge of going insane. It was one thing to reject the acknowledgement of the ancestors, but to reject an offer to become Kong Shi's student. Since it happened here, it was clear that it was the doing of a genius in the guild. In that instant, a figure appeared in their minds: Zhang Xian. It must be him. With quivering lips, Su Shi jumped up in agitation. Celestial Master Teacher, an existence whom even Kong Shi wanted as his student initially, they thought that all they would find was a slightly more capable genius. Never in the dreams did they expect that they would find such a formidable figure whose feats exceeded their imagination. Hurry up and inform the headquarters. Have the pavilion master welcome him personally. Ling Shi excitedly picked up the brush and prepared to write on it. Putting aside Kong Shi's intent to take him in, just the fact that Zhang Xian was a celestial master teacher already made him an existence worthy of the pavilion master to invite over personally. Of the entire continent, only Kong Shi had managed to become a celestial master teacher. Other than him, no one had ever achieved that feat. Ling Shi, wait a moment, Jiang Shu hurriedly stopped him. What's wrong? Frowning, Ling Shi turned to look at Jiang Shu. The matter of celestial master teacher is too big. I'm afraid that it might bring calamity to Zhang Shi if the matter were to leak out. Besides, Kong Shi being rejected isn't a glorious affair. I've already ordered the others to keep quiet on the matter, but if the news were to leak in the headquarters, Pavilion Master Jiang explained. Even though the Master Teacher Pavilion possessed overwhelming authority in the continent, they still had many hidden enemies. Besides, given that the Master Teacher Tournament was going to be held, if other powers were to learn of the existence of such a formidable genius, they might be tempted to poach him or even cut him off before he grows. It was better to proceed prudently. Pavilion Master Jiang is right. We should report this matter straight on to the Pavilion Master alone. The fewer people who knows of it, the better it is. Su Shi nodded grimly in agreement to Jiang Shu's words. At this moment, Ling Shi also recovered from his agitation and nodded. He then wrote on the wall, none. Since they decided not to speak of this matter on the communication wall, they could only reply like this for now. Celestial Master Teacher, and on top of that, a person who nearly became Kong Shi's student. It's one thing if we didn't know, but once we know, we should pay him a visit regardless of the cost. After replying to the headquarters, Su Shi and Ling Shi could no longer suppress their agitation in their hearts. They might be 4-star master teachers, but as compared to a celestial master teacher, they were way too lacking. They had only earned the acknowledgement of the ancestors, but the other party earned the acknowledgement of the heavens. The gap between them couldn't be summarized with just the single word, large. As long as he survived, he would most probably reach the pinnacle of this world. We must pay a visit to Zhang Shi eventually, but the first person we should meet is Yang Shi. Su Shi replied grimly. To be capable of grooming a celestial master teacher, and more importantly, have his own student reject even Kong Shi, how fearsome must this Yang Shi be? If we were to listen to even a word of his guidance, we might be able to take a huge step forward in our cultivation. At this time, Ling Shi also came to the same conclusion, and he nodded in agreement. One could have a lot of teachers in their life. But there were some who have decided to only acknowledge one teacher in their entire life. It was just like Kong Shi's students. Even if they wanted to acknowledge others as their teacher, no one would dare to accept them. For Yang Shi, Zhang Shi was willing to even reject Kong Shi. How fearsome could this Yang Xian be? Let's go. Without any hesitation, the 2 4-star master teacher swiftly headed for Zhang Xian's residence. In the past few days, Mo Hongyi had been in a good mood. Ever since that Zhang Xian fellow's appearance, his records had been beaten one after another, and his title as the #1 genius had been usurped. Since he wasn't as capable as the other party, he could only work diligently in hopes of overtaking him in the future. And his efforts paid off. 2 days ago, he was acknowledged by the ancestors, and he managed to triumph over Zhang Xian for once. With this, he had broken the record of the Master Teacher Pavilion for the past 300 years. Wasn't that Zhang Xian a genius? Wasn't he formidable? But, so what? Zhang Xian still ended up being acknowledged by none of the ancestors at all. In the end, he was still the ultimate victor. A slight smile curved onto Mo Hongyi's lips. The refusal of the ancestors to acknowledge him meant that he had come to the limits of his potential, and his future achievements were limited. He had heard of many geniuses who shone brightly when they were younger, only to end up just like anyone else in the future. This Xuanyuan was probably still the same as well. So what if he was a genius? Potential was the key. I should look for Su Shi and Ling Shi, and see if they are willing to take me in as their student. If they really take me in, I would surely be able to surpass Xuanyuan soon. Tidying up his clothes, a streak of excitement flashed across his eyes. Ever since Pavilion Master Qiang introduced Su Shi and Ling Shi to him, the intention to take one of them as his teacher had sprouted in his mind. If he succeeded, a whole new world would open before him. Mo Shi, my apologies, but Su Shi and Ling Shi have already left this morning. Mo Hongyi looked around the master-teacher pavilion, but he couldn't find the duo. In the end, after asking around about the matter, he met with Pavilion Master Qiang. Left? Where did they go to? Mo Hongyi asked. Oh, they went to Zhang Shi's residence. Pavilion Master Qiang replied. Thank you. Upon learning of their whereabouts, Mo Hongyi nodded and left. I need to hurry. It was very possible that Zhang Xian might have the same thoughts as him. How could he give this good opportunity away to that fellow? He had surpassed the other party in the acknowledgement of the ancestors, and this was a good omen. As long as he worked hard, he would surely be able to surpass the other party's records. Zhang Xian's residence wasn't too far away from the master-teacher pavilion. It didn't take too long for Mo Hongyi to arrive at his destination. Turning around the streets, he suddenly caught sight of two figures and hurriedly stopped. That is Su Shi and Ling Shi. The two master teachers were standing quietly in front of Zhang Xian's residence with a respectful look. Didn't they head here early in the morning? Why were they still standing at the doorstep? More importantly, that respectful attitude, what in the world was that? They were 4-star master teachers, the respected elders of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's master-teacher pavilion. Even if the emperor of Xuanyuan Kingdom were to come, he would have to welcome them subserviently. Yet, at this moment, they seemed no different from anxious students. Mo Hongyi blinked his eyes in disbelief. Jia. Just as he was still in the midst of his shock, the gates to the courtyard opened, and a plump man walked out. He spoke casually. The old master has just returned, and he has asked for you two to enter. I'll just say this in advance, the old master doesn't like a ruckus, so try to maintain silence after you enter. Yes. Don't worry, we'll definitely keep quiet. Su Shi and Ling Shi hurriedly nodded. All right, then let's go. Waving casually, the plump man led the way. The two master teachers hurriedly followed behind. The heck, Mo Hongyi's eyes were about to fall to the floor. What in the world is going on? To think that 4-star master teachers would still have to request for a meeting. On top of that, to wait an entire morning for it. And that butler's casual attitude, almost to the point of being rude. Wasn't he afraid of being smacked to death? Mo Hongyi's mouth twitched violently, and he felt as though the entire world had gone wrong. 1. Shu hour is from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Rubbing his glabella, Zhang Xian finally woke up. There was too much information contained within the Library of Heaven's Path, causing the time he was passed out to last much longer than before. However, the rewards he got was massive as well. Battle techniques, apothecary, beast tamer, painter, physician, master teacher, poison master. The information of countless occupations had become his own. He no longer had to dive into the Library of Heaven's Path to look up this information. With a single thought, it would appear in his head. To gather all of this knowledge, even if one possessed photographic memory, it would take at least dozens of years. On the other hand, Zhang Xian only took an entire day. If others were to know about it, they would definitely spurt blood. What genius and what advanced master teacher! Before such efficiency, they meant nothing at all. There was no basis of comparison at all. As expected of the Book of Heaven's Path. It truly doesn't let me down. Zhang Xian chuckled. Even though he knew the might of the Book of Heaven's path, the pages of which were formed by the earnest gratitude of a student, was formidable, he couldn't help but feel impressed every time he used it. To casually raise his soul depth by 5.0 and assimilate the knowledge contained within the innumerable books in the library of Heaven's path for his own regardless of which one it was sufficient to send anyone into a frenzy. The Book of Heaven's path probably has many more uses than this. Zhang Xian had only managed to uncover these two effects by chance. The use of the Book of Heaven's path was surely much more than that, and he had verified it back then. It seemed like he had to accept more students in the future and win their gratitude so as to collect much more golden pages. This way, he would be able to grow swiftly. After waking up, he spent a long time reorganizing his knowledge before stretching lazily and walking out of the room. Upon walking into the main hall, Sun Qiang walked up to him and reported, "Young master, someone has requested to meet with the old master, and they have already waited for an entire morning." Requested to meet the old master? Who? Zhang Xian was taken aback. They said that they were from the master-teacher pavilion. One of them is Su Fan while the other one is Ling Yuheng. Sun Qing replied. Su Fan. Ling Yuheng. Zhang Xian was perplexed. Who were they? There didn't seem to be these two figures among the master-teachers of Tianwu Kingdom. Wait. They are Su Shi and Ling Shi. An epiphany struck him, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Back then, when Pavilion Master Jiang introduced the two master teachers to him, out of respect, he didn't use their full names. As such, Zhang Xian didn't relate Su Fan and Ling Yuheng to the two 4-star master teachers instantly. However, given that they came from the master teacher pavilion and they were here to look for old master Yang Xian, who else could it be other than those two fellows? Didn't he say that he would tell them about it once Yang Shi returns? Why would they rush here all of the sudden, not to mention, early in the morning? He hadn't even made preparations yet. The two 4-star master teachers were existences that surpassed Jizuan realm experts yet, they had been waiting at his entrance for an entire morning. Where did you arrange them to rest at? The guest room or the conference room? Upon thinking about how he kept these two formidable figures waiting, Zhang Xian's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but ask. Guest room? Conference room? They didn't even bring anything when paying a visit to Yang Shi. Are they worthy of such treatment? Sun Qiang harumphed in disdain. I had those two disrespectful fellows wait outside the residence. If not for the fact that they came from the master-teacher pavilion, would have chased them away already. Who the hell do they think they are, to not even know the rules? Putong. After hearing those words, Zhang Xian's body swayed, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Young master, what's wrong? Sun Qiang hurried forward to support him. What's wrong? Zhang Xian nearly burst into tears. The hell? Do you know how powerful the two of them are? What's wrong? This useless fellow. How did he find himself such a darned butler? The two of them were 4-star master teachers, and he kept them waiting outside for an entire morning. He sure was courageous. Zhang Xian felt blood welling up at the back of his throat. If he didn't discipline this butler of his soon, it was just a matter of time before he is done in by another party. It was fortunate that those two master teachers had a good temper. Otherwise, if they were to lash out, even the entire Tianwu kingdom wouldn't be sufficient to placate their wrath. Just as he was about to berate the other party, he suddenly recalled that the other party's arrogant personality was a result of Yang Shi's teaching back then. Suddenly, he felt stifled within. Hurry up and invite them in. Make sure to treat them respectfully. Holding back his frustration, Zhang Xian instructed. However, halfway through his words, he shook his head. Forget it. Just treat them as any other guest, and bring them over here. I'll contact teacher now. The old master, whom the other party wanted to meet, was supposed to be an equal existence to them. If he were to change his attitude now, it could bring even more trouble. It wasn't his first time playing off as an expert, and he didn't mind doing it again. Besides, he had no other choice anyway. The butler had already gone so far. If the strength of this Yang Shi turned out to be inferior to them, wouldn't they immediately fly into a rage? Yes. Sun Qiang walked out. Upon seeing him leave, Xuanyuan took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put it on. Then, operating his Heaven's Path disguise art, his muscles started moving, and his appearance changed. It didn't take long for him to turn into Xuanyuan. However, with his stronger cultivation and higher soul depth, he held a much more imposing disposition compared to back when he was still at Tianxian Kingdom. Ascertaining that there were no flaws in his disguise, Xuanyuan walked over to the main seat, sipped on his tea, and waited patiently. Not too long later, the duo walked in under Sun Qiang's lead. As Xuanyuan expected, they were Su Shi and Ling Shi. This is the old master, Yang Shi. Upon seeing that the old master was in the main hall, Sun Qiang was dazed for a moment before hurriedly introducing with a proud look. Su Fan pays respect to Yang Shi. Ling Yuhan greets Yang Shi. The duo clasped their fists respectfully. Even though they could tell that Yang Shi was man of great capabilities through Xuanyuan, they still felt a little displeased at how the other party kept them waiting for an entire morning. No matter what, they were 4-star master teachers. To be left waiting at the doorstep, it could only mean that the other party didn't think much of them. Thus, they started observing this Xuanyuan as soon as they arrived, intent to see if he was as formidable as the others made him out to be. But with a single look, they frowned. The muscles and the bones of the man before them didn't align perfectly with one another, and there were signs of them being moved. Clearly, he was in disguise. They couldn't discern his original appearance, but through his clean and smooth skin, as well as his powerful vitality, he was likely to be young. There were geniuses in this world, but no matter how talented a person was, he needed time to grow. In the end, age was still a limiting factor for one's abilities. This Yang Shi seems young. Upon seeing through all this, Su Shi sent a telepathic message to Ling Shi. Indeed. However, I can't see through his cultivation. Ling Shi frowned. They were both existences who surpassed Jizuan realm. As long as the other party's cultivation didn't surpass theirs, they should be able to discern the other party's cultivation easily, even if the other party tried to conceal it. However, despite their intent observation, they were unable to tell anything at all. This meant that the person before them could only be stronger than them. Su Shi nodded. He was unable to see through the other party's cultivation as well. There were only 2 possibilities if one was unable to see through another person's cultivation. Firstly, the other party was stronger than them. Secondly, the cultivation technique that the other party cultivated was at a much higher level than their own, resulting in his Jinqi being so pure that one was unable to make a clear assessment. Regardless of which of the 2 possibilities it was, it could only mean to say that Yang Shi wasn't an ordinary person. Done looking yet? They stared intently at Yang Shi with a tenacious drive to dig out every single detail of his, only to see the other party casually lifting a teapot and slowly pouring himself a cup of tea. Without even glancing at them, his impassive voice sounded. We've heard of the numerous amazing feats of Yang Shi, and your ability to nourish a student like Zhang Shi has filled us with admiration and curiosity. Please pardon our breach of etiquette. Upon being exposed, the duo felt a little awkward. Smiling faintly, Su Shi and Ling Shi glanced at one another before taking a seat. It's not a problem. Putting down the teapot, Xuanyuan lifted his head and glanced at them. Only then did the duo clearly see his appearance. Yang Shi was in his 40s, and he had a dashing appearance. Su Shi and Ling Shi immediately tried to match his looks to the descriptions of the master teachers they had heard of, but at this moment, they suddenly saw the other party's clear eyes. Looking into those eyes, Su Shi and Ling Shi's breathing immediately hastened. Their eyes widened, and they nearly dropped the teacup in their hands onto the floor. This is Eye of Insight. Small strings of insight energy flowed within those wise and deep eyes, making the person before them an unfathomable existence. With just a single look, a name immediately appeared in their mind's eye of insight. This was an ability that only 6-star master teachers could comprehend. It was said that those who possessed this could peer into the essence of the world with a single look. They thought that it was only a legend, but to think that it would be true. And for it to appear on the person before them at that. Could it be that? The lips of the duo quivered. Could this Yang Shi be a 6-star master teacher, or even higher than that? The very thought of it vanquished their displeasure from being disregarded by the other party. Putting aside the knowledge and rallying ability of a 6-star master teacher, with his cultivation itself, he would be more than capable of destroying the entire Myriad Kingdom alliance. Even if an expert of his caliber were to humiliate them, they wouldn't dare to utter a single word of complaint. This was the strength and rank of a 6-star master teacher. The disparity between each rank grew larger the higher up the ladder of a master teacher. Especially after 5-star, the difference between each rank was like heaven and earth. A 2-star master teacher might be hard-pressed to defeat 10 1-star master teachers, but it was a walk in the park for a 6-star master teacher to subdue 100 5-star master teachers at once. Who? The duo's hearts jolted. Fortunately, the insight energy flowing within Yang Shi's eyes disappeared after a short moment, and he reverted back to his original state. Gazing at the duo impassively, Yang Shi said, "Su Shi and Ling Shi, may I know the reason for your visit?" Su Shi was dumbstruck. Initially, they thought that Yang Shi would be around their caliber, and their highest estimate was 4-star pinnacle or 5-star. If so, they could still interact and trade some insights. Who could have thought that the other party would display the eye of insight which only 6-star master teachers could comprehend? They could still trade insights with those around the same level as them, but with this kind of expert, how in the world should they trade insights with him? It would be more like seeking guidance. But given how they abruptly visited the other party, if they were to say that they were here to seek guidance, that would be a huge breach of etiquette. Actually, we asked a favor of Zhang Shi. May I know if he has discussed the matter with Yang Shi yet? Ling Shi reacted swiftly, and he hurriedly replied. That's right. We're here for this matter. Su Shi nodded vigorously. Is it about the matter of the master teacher tournament? Zhang Xian frowned. He was perplexed by why these two experts were so intent to find Yang Shi, but to think that it would be for this matter. Back then, when the other party told him to discuss this matter with his teacher, it seemed like they really meant what they said. Yes. Despite being under 20, Zhang Shi possesses outstanding talents. If he were to join, he'll surely be able to make a name for himself, Su Shi hurriedly explained. However, before he could finish his words, a cold harumph echoed in the hall. Does my student need a tournament to prove himself? Yang Shi gestured haughtily, you must be joking. This Su Shi and Ling Shi shuddered, and their faces paled simultaneously. This person before them could potentially be a master teacher beyond 6-star. At the same time, his student, Zhang Xian, was a person who was capable of breaking the records of the guild simultaneously. If he truly wished to make a name for himself, there was no need for him to join any tournament whatsoever. In fact, just by saying that he was Yang Shi's student, he was already able to incur the envy of countless geniuses in the world. Yang Shi, I have misspoken. Pardon me, Su Shi hurriedly apologized. Enough. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. If this is the reason why you all are here, you all can leave now. The decision is in Zhang Xian's hands. I am only his teacher, I'm not his nanny. I don't interfere in all of his affairs. We were rash. Upon hearing the other party's intent to chase them out, Su Shi and Ling Shi hurriedly stood up, but they didn't leave immediately. Instead, a hesitant look appeared on their face, and Su Shi gritted his teeth and asked, Actually, I have met with some doubts in my cultivation, and I would like to ask for Yang Shi's guidance. This was a master teacher who was likely to exceed 6-star. He might not necessarily meet another one in his entire life. Since he met with one, if he didn't ask any questions, he would surely regret it for the rest of his life. What doubts do you have? Zhang Xian clenched his fists tightly, but he put on a nonchalant expression. This was what he feared the most, disguising as a higher-ranked master teacher. As a master teacher, he had a duty to enlighten his juniors. While he could refuse the other party, it could potentially raise doubts on his character, or even worse, his identity. Seeing that the other party didn't reject them outright, Su Shi heaved a sigh of relief. A hint of delight flashed in his eyes, and he hurriedly replied, "The cultivation technique that I am cultivating now is miniature solar art, and every time I drive it to the 7th circulation I feel as though my body is being torn apart, and I'm unable to continue on. This matter has been plaguing me for a while, and I've been unable to find a solution to it." Miniature solar art? Zhang Xian's face darkened. He had assimilated the knowledge of the books in Tianwu Royal City into his head, but this name didn't ring a bell at all. He had no idea what the 6th or 7th circulation the other party was talking about was at all. "Show me." Even though Zhang Xian felt a little stifled within, he had experienced this kind of stuff numerous times, so he didn't panic at all. Instead, he slowly sipped on his tea before raising his gaze to ask. His movements were composed and refined. "Yes." Su Shi nodded. To offer the most accurate guidance, one had to see the situation for themselves first. Su Shi moved to the center of the room and sat down cross-legged. Then, his hands moved in a circular motion, and spiritual energy started to concentrate in the center. Tzzzzzzzz. The speed at which spiritual energy was being absorbed was so swift that a deafening sonic boom sounded. Incredible. Seeing the speed at which the other party was pulling in spiritual energy at, Zhang Xian's eyelids twitched. As expected of a 4-star master teacher, his means were indeed exceptional. Flaws. Given that the other party was operating his cultivation technique, a book immediately appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. Zhang Xian quickly flipped through it. Su Fan, 4-star primary master teacher, transcendent mortal cultivator, an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. Cultivation technique, miniature solar art. Flaws. Su Fan's information was recorded in detail in the book. After using the golden page and assimilating the knowledge in all of the books of the Library of Heaven's Path into his head, Zhang Xian already knew that beyond the Fighter 9 Dawn was transcendent mortal. The Fighter 9 Dawn was actually a stage to bring the strength of a mortal to the very limits. From there on, one would surpass his mortality to reach higher realms. Just like the Fighter 9 Dawn, the transcendent mortal realm also had 9 Dawn. However, as Tianwu Kingdom didn't have access to books of that level, there wasn't any detailed description on it. However, given that the person before him was a transcendent mortal expert, regardless of whether it was his physical body, spirit, or level of existence, he had already surpassed that of Zhizuan realm to reach the heights unattainable by mortals. It was just like the gap between a phantom weapon and a spirit weapon. Their level of existence was completely different from one another. After reading through the flaws written in the book, a bizarre look flashed on Zhang Xian's face. The moment Su Shi started cultivating, Ling Shi hurriedly turned his gaze onto Yang Shi. As an old buddy of the former, Ling Shi knew about this problem as well. He searched through countless books and even asked a higher-tiered guild through the communication wall about the matter. However, no one had been able to answer this question. Since Su Shi had brought up this problem, Ling Shi was curious to see how Yang Shi would deal with this situation. Given that the other party was likely to be a master teacher ranked beyond 6-star, seeing how he dealt with problems and learning from him might prove to be helpful to him for his advancement in the occupation. Thus, he focused all of his attention on Yang Shi, intent on catching every single action of his. However, after taking a brief look, a deep crease furrowed on his forehead, and doubts sprouted in his mind. It was normal for master teachers to ask of the other party to display their cultivation technique or battle technique and observe it intently so as to determine the problems within them. However, Yang Shi closed his eyes right after catching a glimpse, and fell motionless. What in the world was he up to? Don't you have the eye of insight? Shouldn't you use this ability to determine the faults in his cultivation? Why aren't you using it? On top of that, the faults in cultivation techniques tend to be deeper than battle techniques. You should at least observe it for a while longer and even ask him some questions about the matter before making a decision. To do nothing at all, and close your eyes as though you are sleeping, what kind of diagnosis method is that? Ling Shi was baffled. Master teachers were similar to physicians in several ways. One had to observe carefully to determine the crux of a problem before dealing with it at the very root. As a 4-star master teacher, Ling Shi knew more than 10,000 diagnosis methods, but none of it consisted of a momentary glimpse before closing one's eyes and falling into a daze. It can't be that even he can't solve it? A thought appeared in Ling Shi's mind. Given how the other party possessed the eye of insight, he bore no doubts toward the other party's identity. However, he couldn't bear to see his good buddy to be disappointed once more. All right, it's enough. At this moment, Yang Shi finally opened his eyes and said. There wasn't a single emotion that could be seen on his face. Yes. Calming down his cultivation, Su Shi stared at Yang Shi hopefully. Yang Shi, is there a solution? Ling Shi asked carefully. Given how the other party closed his eyes right after catching a glimpse, he didn't think it was likely, but that couldn't stop him from hoping. Solution? Zhang Xian shook his head. There's no problem with his cultivation. The miniature solar art is also very compatible with his physique. Then, the duo was stunned. If there was nothing wrong with his cultivation, and his cultivation technique was compatible with him as well, then why would he be unable to continue upon coming to the 7th circulation? You wish to reach the 8th circulation? Seeing the duo fall silent, Zhang Xian gazed at Su Shi and asked. Yes. I've been stuck at the 7th circulation for more than 5 years already, but I'm still unable to find the method to achieve a breakthrough. Su Shi hurriedly nodded his head. The cultivation technique that he practiced, the miniature solar art, was a spirit cultivation technique. It had been more than 50 years since he started cultivating the technique, and he had endured intense heat and frigid chill innumerable times to master it. He thought that he could try for the 9th circulation, the highest realm of the technique, at a single go to achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation, but he couldn't have imagined that he would be stuck at the 7th circulation. For 5 consecutive years, his cultivation had stagnated. He had asked countless master teachers about this matter, and numerous elders of the guild even sat together to inspect this matter. However, none of them was able to determine the root of the problem. If you wish to reach 8th circulation, then listen to my instructions. Don't try to retaliate and don't harbor any doubts. Zhang Xian stood up and slowly walked towards Su Shi with his hands behind his back. All right. Su Shi agreed without any hesitation. The person before him was an expert who groomed a celestial master teacher. Since the other party was willing to help him, this was an extremely good opportunity for him. All right. Start cultivating once more. I'll use a special method for you to pass the 7th circulation, but before that, you have to close your eyes. No matter what happens, just focus all of your attention on driving your cultivation technique. Zhang Xian said gravely. Yes. Still seated cross-legged on the floor, Su Shi took a deep breath and started to cultivate once more. You can't sit, you have to cultivate in the horse stance. Zhang Xian instructed. Cultivate in the horse stance. Su Shi was taken aback, but he nodded his head without much hesitation. At his level, he was more than capable of multitasking. Putting aside cultivating while in a horse stance, he could even cultivate while executing a battle technique. All right, I'll begin then. Thus, Su Shi took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Goo 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 goo. The spiritual energy from the air began to be pulled into his body once more. The miniature solar art induced concentrated yang energy to be infused into one's shinqi, thus granting one strength far greater than those of the same cultivation realm. This was precisely the reason why, even though Su Shi and Ling Shi were both 4-star primary master teachers, the former possessed a much higher standing. Su Shi reached a state of imperturbability as soon as he began. Satisfied, Zhang Xian nodded. He circled around the other party before turning over to Ling Shi. Do you wish to help him? Ling Shi was taken aback. How can I help him? Shouldn't your guidance be the key to his breakthrough? I have a play in this matter as well. Just listen to my commands. Zhang Xian said. Yes. Ling Shi agreed. The other party's action of closing his eyes after a glimpse had already left him doubtful. Yet, at this moment, the other party was asking him to help him in this matter. Ling Shi's curiosity was piqued. He wanted to see what kind of method the other party would use to help Ling Shi to reach the 8th circulation, and what kind of role he would play in the matter. Hold on for a moment. After hearing Ling Shi agree to the matter, Zhang Xian stood silently on the spot, staring intently at Su Shi impassively. Goo goo goo. Along with Su Shi's cultivation, his aura gradually grew stronger and stronger, as though a dragon awakening from his slumber. 4th circulation, 5th circulation, 6th circulation. Feeling the aura on the other party slowly growing more and more powerful, Ling Shi's expression turned graver and graver. The two of them were close buddies, and Su Shi had cultivated the miniature solar art before Ling Shi on numerous occasions, so he was well aware of the details of his cultivation technique, as well as when the problem would occur. Kacha. The 6th circulation came to an end, and as soon as the 7th circulation began, Jia. A crisp sound echoed from Su Shi's bones, and it sounded as though something had broken. Then, his flesh started to tear apart, and blood spilled out from the lacerations. In the blink of an eye, the scholarly-looking Su Shi suddenly became a demon that crawled out from hell. Yang Shi, Su Shi might be unable to hold on any longer. Upon seeing the state of his old buddy, anxiety showed on Ling Shi's face. Based on his understanding, this was the limit of the other party. Any further than that might cause severe injuries to him. It was precisely because of his body being unable to withstand the cultivation technique that the cultivation of his old buddy had remained stagnant for the past 5 years. This was also why he was intent on visiting Yang Shi after hearing about his incredible feats. Let's begin now, come over here. Nodding, Zhang Xian beckoned Ling Shi over. All right. Ling Shi hurriedly rushed over. You just have to do this. Zhang Xian sent him a telepathic message, explaining his secret technique to him clearly. Upon hearing Yang Shi's secret technique, the edges of Ling Shi's mouth twitched, and his entire body froze on the spot. He was already on the verge of tears. What the heck was this solution? Are you trying to kill him through my hands? Will it really work? It's worth a try. After which, Zhang Xian walked back to his seat and sat down calmly. Then, he poured himself a cup of tea and silently sipped on it. Try. Ling Shi spewed blood. The method you brought up is obviously a murder attempt. I thought that you are confident in this matter. To think that it would only be a try. What if it doesn't succeed? Won't Su Shi die for real? I will have to bear the crime of killing a comrade if that happens. Yang Shi, is there any other possible solution? Ling Shi asked, hesitant to use Zhang Xian's method. Zhang Xian couldn't be bothered to answer Ling Shi's question. He sat quietly on the spot, not even sparing the latter a glance. Upon seeing his attitude, Ling Shi knew that it was impossible to pry anything out of his mouth even if there was another solution. Thus, he turned his gaze to Su Shi hesitantly. What the hell was this? The one who was afflicted with the problem was Su Shi, and the one who wanted to pass the 7th circulation was him as well. Then why was the one who was in dilemma him? How is it? Hurry up. I can't hang on any longer. While Ling Shi was still conflicted, Su Shi bellowed with a savage expression. He had already held on to the 7th circulation for quite a period of time now. If nothing was done, he would surely be severely injured once more, and this attempt would end in failure. In the past, that was the case as well. Every time he tried to cultivate this technique, he would have to rest for at least a month. Honestly speaking, Su Shi felt stifled as well. What was wrong with this old buddy of his? Since Yang Shi had already told him the solution to the problem, he should hurry up. What was he hesitating for? Did he want to see him fail this attempt and be stuck in bed for another month? All right then. Hearing the other party's urging, Ling Shi gritted his teeth and walked over. Then, with a look of pity, he said, Su Shi, I'm sorry. Sorry? Su Shi was taken aback. Using the secret technique to help me pass the 7th circulation is helping me, so what do you mean by sorry? Before Su Shi could make sense of the situation, he suddenly felt a strong shock wave from beneath his crotch. Just the immense shock wave he felt caused Su Shi's soul to almost leave his body in fright. If the attack were to strike him, he would surely be crippled. There was no doubt about it. Even though he was already old and it wasn't of any use already, it was still a part of his body. What in the world are you trying to do? Don't move. Just as Su Shi was about to twist and avoid the attack, Yang Shi's stern voice echoed. The slight moment of hesitation sealed his fate. Ling Shi's leg flew swiftly upward. Pang! Su Shi's face immediately distorted. His vision darkened, and an intense pain struck his entire body from his crotch, causing him to almost faint on the spot. Ling Yuheng, you'd better remember this, howling furiously in his heart. He was just about to tear the person before him apart when a giant palm struck his head. After seeing that he was still alive after having his crotch struck, the other party wanted to finish him off with a slap. Su Shi burst into tears. Didn't Yang Shi get you to use that secret technique he taught you? Why are you beating me up instead? You don't think that crippling me is enough, so you wish to claim my life as well? Stifled, Su Shi tried to avoid the attack but to no avail. In terms of strength, the two of them were on par. Even if Su Shi could defeat Ling Shi, it would at least take 1,000 blows. Now that his crotch had been struck, and unimaginable pain was coursing through his body, how could he possibly be in the condition to avoid the other party's attack? Furthermore, the other party used his Jinqi to seal his surroundings, causing him to be unable to move at all. Before he could struggle free, the other party's palm had already struck his head. Pang! His vision turned dark, and he spurted a mouthful of blood. But all of a sudden, Su Shi felt a powerful strength gushing from his dantian, and unable to hold himself back anymore, he roared furiously. Boom! A powerful shock wave immediately gushed forth from him, and cracks swiftly spread across the floor tiles as though a spider web. At the same moment, the tables and chairs in the vicinity was reduced to dust. Kacha! As though having eaten some nutritious tonic, his Jinqi, which had stopped moving, suddenly formed a torrent, and having broken through the countless shackles from before, it performed another circulation in his body. The 8th circulation. Isuc succeeded. Recovering from his pain, Su Shi sensed the raging and seemingly endless Jinqi flowing through his body, and he froze for a moment before frenzied delight grasped him. Never in his dreams did he expect to break through the obstruction which had hindered him for 5 years. Just like that, it worked. Ling Shi thought that his friendship with the other party would have come to an end after he crippled him and struck him on his face. He didn't expect the other party's aura to suddenly surge, allowing him to break through his bottleneck at the 7th circulation. He hurriedly turned to look at Yang Shi. As though knowing that this would happen, the other party was still drinking his tea calmly, not paying any heed to the situation here. This is a problem which even the pavilion master and a 5-star master teacher couldn't solve. Yet, with a single kick and slap, Ling Shi's eyes opened wide, and his body trembled slightly. He knew that it was impossible for Yang Shi to be simple, given how he was able to groom a student of Zhang Xian's caliber, but he didn't think that he would be so impressive. With a single glance, the other party had already found the root of the problem, as well as the solution to it. On top of that, he didn't even use his eye of insight at all. Yang Shi's capability was already beyond his imagination. Just that, isn't the solution a little way too ridiculous? After recovering from his shock, Ling Shi's first reaction was speechlessness. When other master teachers guided someone, they would often alter their cultivation technique, point out the errors in their cultivation, recommend them some effective pills, or something along those lines. Yet, this fellow's guidance was actually a kick and a slap. It was simple, but upon recalling the kick just now, Ling Shi's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Even if the other party wasn't crippled, he would have to at least recuperate for 2 years before being able to use it once more. Yang Shi, thank you for helping me achieve a breakthrough. At this moment, Su Shi had finally finished his cultivation, and his aura felt significantly stronger than before. Excited, he hurriedly clasped his hand to thank Yang Shi. Having reached the 8th circulation, his cultivation rose significantly as well, even though it was still slightly unstable as he hadn't reinforced yet it. But in any case, he had managed to take a step forward after 5 years of stagnation. Just that the price was a way too high. The excruciating pain left his legs shaking non-stop, and cold sweat trickled down his forehead profusely. If not in consideration for his image, he would have definitely bent down and scrunched in a C shape. Putting down his teacup, Zhang Xian stood up and gazed at the duo calmly. Do you all understand the reason behind this? Yang Shi, please enlighten us. The duo gazed at one another before bowing toward Yang Shi. It was unfathomable how a single kick and a slap could work such miracles. Even though they had seen the sight for themselves, they still couldn't help but find it inconceivable. Seeing the incomprehension in their eyes, Zhang Xian shook his head and turned to Su Shi. The technique you cultivate is miniature solar art, and your physical constitution also possesses overwhelming yang energy. Without a doubt, this cultivation technique complements you very well. Rationally speaking, it shouldn't be a problem for you to reach the 8th circulation. However, with a deep gaze with slight traces of regret within, Zhang Xian continued, time trickles on like a relentless river. As you age, your physical function slowly deteriorates, and the yang energy within your body is already unable to keep up with your cultivation technique. If I'm not wrong, you don't have much of an interest in the opposite gender now, right? Su Shi felt a little awkward. As he aged and his physical functions deteriorate, his interest toward the opposite gender slowly died down. However, this was his secret. After having such a matter pointed out by the other party, his face immediately flushed in embarrassment. What men feared was having their impotency pointed out. Since even the opposite gender is unable to attract you, it goes to show that the decline of your yang energy has already reached a severe state. Without sufficient yang energy to sustain your cultivation technique, no matter how formidable you are, you won't be able to drive it as easily as you used to. Disregarding the other party's embarrassment, Zhang Xian continued explaining, the crotch isn't just the symbol of one's masculinity, it's also the origin of yang energy in a man. As such, when Ling Shi struck on it with his might, the yang energy accumulated within immediately gushed out, granting you with a further drive for your cultivation technique. But of course, this didn't necessarily guarantee that you can exceed the 7th circulation. Just in case, I had him strike your head as well. The head is where the yang energy gathers at. After the origin has been struck, the dissipated yang energy would gather at your head. Thus, when Ling Shi struck your head, you immediately broke through your bottleneck, reaching the 8th circulation. Chuckling lightly, Zhang Xian stood up with his hands behind his back. The shadow behind him extended far, making him look incomparably large and powerful. The duo was shocked. The other party had put it simply, but as master teachers, they knew how difficult the matter was. While it was true that the crotch was the birth of yang energy, it was also the weakest spot of a man. On top of that, the head was an even more vital region. To strike the both of them consecutively, if there was the slightest error in the other party's conjecture, Su Shi would have died. To have such grasp over Su Shi's illness, was this person before them still a human? Incredible. Yang Shi is truly incredible. Glancing at one another, the same though appeared in the duo at once. To be able to identify his problem with a single glance accurately and accurately determining the amount of strength Ling Shi should put into his attack in just this short period of time, there was no one that they knew who was capable of such a feat. To think that they thought that Yang Shi would be of equal standing as them. In the end, there wasn't any basis of comparison between them at all, they were at completely different levels. As expected of the master teacher who had comprehended eye of insight, fearsome. You should hurry up and condition yourself. Your injuries are also quite severe this time around. Seeing the expression of the duo, Zhang Xian knew that he had managed to hoodwink the duo, and he inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he looked at Su Shi in sympathy. If Zhang Xian made a move himself, he could use Heaven's Path Xinqi to stimulate the other party's acupoints to release the accumulated yang energy. This would produce the similar effect of breaking through the seventh circulation as well. However, the other party would surely be able to see through the uniqueness of his Heaven's Path Xinqi, as well as his cultivation. If so, he would give himself in. Thus, after much contemplation, he decided to go with this. However, this was indeed a little too violent. Even Zhang Xian couldn't help but feel a chill at his crotch upon seeing the sight. Yes, upon hearing those words, Su Shi heaved a sigh of relief. Putting everything aside, he immediately sat down and drove his cultivation, warding off the excruciating pain he was suffering from the two violent blows. Yang Shi, Su Shi has managed to reach the 8th circulation this time, but if he wants to try for the 9th circulation, what should he do? At this moment, Ling Shi couldn't help but ask. Only after reaching the highest level, the 9th circulation, could Su Shi attempt to reach for higher realms. Given how difficult it was for him to reach the 8th circulation already, what should he do to reach the 9th circulation? Simple. Just use the same method. If a single kick doesn't work, then kick another time. If it still doesn't work, then kick it 10 more times. Eventually, sufficient yang energy should be stimulated for his breakthrough. Zhang Xian replied calmly. 10 times? Ling Shi's sweat immediately flowed down profusely. At the same time, Su Shi's body trembled upon hearing those words, and his cultivation nearly went berserk. The heck, if only that I knew this would happen, I shouldn't have picked up this cultivation technique. While the two master teachers were on the verge of a breakdown, not too far away, in the Lin residence, a giant savage beast flew straight over. Who? It landed at the center of the courtyard, and 2 men and a lady alighted from its back. Chapter 405, The Formidable Sun Qiang. This is the Lin clan residence. As the number 1 clan in Tianwu Kingdom, even if it was late at night, the Lin clan residence should have been bustling with guests. However, the empty courtyard was wrecked, and there wasn't a single guard or servant to be seen. It was completely different from how she remembered it. Lu Qiang, I'm going to kill you. Princess Consort Lin Long's beautiful eyes widened in rage, and her black hair drifted slightly despite the absence of wind. Her furious howl reverberated within the residence. When she received the news back then, the person named Lu Qiang was in the midst of dealing with the Lin clan residence. Without a doubt, that fellow must be the culprit. Hurry up and look around to find my father and my little brother. If anything happens to them, I want the entire Tianwu kingdom to be buried along with them. Her silver teeth clenched tightly in resentment, and deep killing intent flashed in her eyes. How dare a Tier 1 kingdom, a trash-like existence whom wasn't worthy of her consideration, lay its hands on her Lin clan? It was courting death. To dare assault the Lin clan, that Lu Qiang had to die. And for the Tianwu royal family to know of the matter but stay idle, it must pay the price as well. Yes. The 2 men behind her immediately darted away. Eastern Palace Commander Liang Qingming possessed the strength of a Zhizuan realm advanced stage, while beast tamer Zhou Jin, who tagged along with the 2 of them, had reached Zhizuan realm primary stage. The 2 Zhizuan realm experts moved swiftly, and before long, they reported back to the Princess Consort. Your Highness, Clan Head Lin and young Master Lin are over there. Upon hearing that her father and younger brother weren't dead yet, Lin Long heaved a sigh of relief. She hurried over, and entered a giant hall. With a single look, her face immediately crumbled. The duo was alive, but they were no different from being dead. Their cultivation had been dissipated, and there wasn't a single spot on them that was intact. Heavily injured, even if they were to be saved at this point, they were already crippled. The younger of the duo was unconscious, and if not for his faint breathing one would have thought that he were dead. Longer, you must exact vengeance for us. Upon seeing her walk over, Lin Ruotian immediately rushed over, as though meeting his savior. Back then, even though Lu Chong didn't kill him, he had Hall Master Liao plant at least 7 lethal poison all over his body, causing him to be in agony at every single moment. On top of that, the Lin clan's fall from grace caused all of their past enemies to come knocking. The torture and humiliation he'd suffered made him tempted to commit suicide. If not for a tenacious drive pushing him on to wait for her daughter and have her exact vengeance for him, he would have already given in. What happened? Lin Long hurriedly fed the other party a recovery pill before asking. It's Lu Cheng. No, to be precise, it's 2-star master teacher Zhang Xian. His student is that bastard who fled from the Chu clan 2 years ago. After consuming the pill, Lin Ruotian recovered some of his stamina. Gritting his teeth, he started recounting the matter. But of course, all he talked about was how he was insulted and humiliated by the other party. As for the cause of the matter, as well as the destruction of the Chu clan, he didn't bother to fill the other party in on the details. But in any case, it was unlikely that the other party would care either. Zhang Xian. Lin Long narrowed her eyes and bellowed, Commander Liang, head to the Master-Teacher Pavilion at this moment and capture Zhang Xian. I want him to pay the price and let everyone know that only death awaits those who dares to offend our Lin clan. Your Highness, please reconsider your orders. This Zhang Xian is a 2-star master teacher, and a genius at that. He's likely to be a target of protection of the Master-Teacher Pavilion. Frowning, Liang Qingming tried to persuade the other party. A 2-star primary master teacher didn't mean much to Xuanyuan Kingdom. However, killing a master teacher publicly might result in a backlash. Even Xuanyuan Kingdom couldn't afford to incur the wrath of the Master-Teacher Pavilion. He destroyed my family and killed my kin. So what if he has the backing of the Master-Teacher Pavilion? Can a master teacher act unreasonably just because he has backing? Besides, the Xuanyuan Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion's Pavilion Master Luo is a close friend of the Crown Prince. As long as we explain the situation to him, he should overlook the matter. Lin Long's eyes reddened in fury. The Pavilion Master of Xuanyuan Kingdom's Master Teacher Pavilion was Luo Qianhong. With his backing, Lin Long had very little worry. After all, it wasn't beneficial for him to turn against the future emperor over such a minor character. Yes. Seeing the other party's insistence, Liang Qingming could only obey her orders. Nodding, he was just about to leave when another voice sounded. Wait a moment, I want to go with you. I want to see how this fellow is torn apart. The savagery on the emaciated face of Lin Ruotian created an extremely eerie sight, as though a demon who had climbed out of hell. All right, let's go together. Seeing her father's state, Lin Long immediately agreed to the matter. Thus, the group climbed onto the gold-scaled lightning beast and darted into the skies. I've been keeping tabs on that scoundrel. He isn't in the Master-Teacher Pavilion now, but in a residence not too far away. Lin Ruotian said. Knowing that his daughter would rush in as soon as she could to exact vengeance, he had the final loyal servants of the Lin clan keep an eye on Zhang Xian. Instead of escaping, the other party had been holing himself in his residence. Boom! Given the speed of the gold-scaled lightning beast, it only took a few moments for it to reach the skies above the residence. Commander Liang, I hope that you can capture him alive. I want to torture him slowly to his death. With a face distorted in savagery, madness shone on Lin Ruotian's face. As the father of the Princess Consort of Xuanyuan Kingdom, he knew some of the important figures around the Crown Prince, and Liang Qingming was one of them. Based on what he knew, the other party possessed a strength of Zhizuan realm advanced stage. With such strength, he could wipe out the entire Tianwu Kingdom easily. Even the guardian beast of Tianwu royal family was only at Xuanyuan realm primary stage. An expert of this caliber could easily crush it to death. Don't worry. Liang Qingming nodded. He walked up to the head of the gold-scaled lightning beast and gazed coldly at the residents below. The might of a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert immediately shrouded the entire area, and a cold voice boomed. Zhang Xian, come out and die. Boom. His voice was infused with the jinqi of a Xuanyuan expert, and the entire capital trembled before it. Come out and die. Shit, the princess consort of the Lin clan is here. This is bad. Judging from the might from his voice itself, he's at least a Xuanyuan realm expert. Can Zhang Shi really stand against him? Zhang Shi might be strong, but he's still far from a match from Xuanyuan realm experts. This time, he's really in trouble. The voice alarmed the entire population of Tianwu royal city, and their faces paled. The backing of the Lin clan was no secret. Even though there hadn't been any movement from Xuanyuan kingdom's side the past few days, they knew that it was only the calm before the storm. At this moment, given that fearless and mighty voice and the gigantic savage beast flying in the air, without a doubt, the other party was here. They were here to exact vengeance. Xuanyuan realm advanced stage. If I'm not wrong, that must be the commander of the Crown Prince residence, Liang Qingming. In the palace, Missouri Tianxue also heard the voice as well. Rushing up to the highest tower, he saw the middle-aged man on top of the savage beast, and his lips quivered in fear. As a vassal state, he still knew a little about the various powers and important figures in Xuanyuan kingdom. Given the powerful might he shown, without a doubt, this middle-aged man had to be the Xuanyuan realm advanced stage commander. Xuanyuan realm advanced stage. Isn't Zhang Shi in trouble then? Mou's body swayed, and anxiety filled her. Even though Zhang Xian had produced miracles time and time again, there was a huge gap between Xuanyuan realm advanced stage and half Xuanyuan. To think that Lin Long would actually send such a person here. How in the world could Zhang Shi withstand such overwhelming strength? There's nothing we can do. On top of that, it seems like Tianwu kingdom is doomed as well. Mo Tianxue's body shuddered. The other party was a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert. No strategy would work when there was such a humongous disparity in strength. Even the guardian beast was helpless in this situation. They weren't a match at all. Xiao Yu, take this ring and escape swiftly. As long as you survive, even if the kingdom is destroyed, it can still be rebuilt. Mo Tianxue hurriedly took off the storage ring from his forefinger and passed it over to Mou. Mou was talented and smart. If Tianwu kingdom were to be destroyed today, she would be the only hope to rebuilding it from ruins. No matter what, she mustn't die here. Otherwise, Mo Tianxue wouldn't be able to face the predecessors of the Mo clan even upon death. Father, Mou's body trembled in agitation. She was unwilling to abandon her father, but she knew that this was the best solution they had. Back then, Lin Long could eradicate the entire Chu clan over such a minor matter. Given that how the entire Lin clan was destroyed this time around, it was highly possible that she would turn her rage to Tianwu royal family after Zhang Shi dies. It was highly possible that she would wipe out all that possessed the royal blood in vengeance. Alright, go. I can't go with you. If I were to leave now, there'd be a pandemonium. My fate will be one with Tianwu kingdom. Mo Tianxue said determinedly. As the emperor of the kingdom, he couldn't abandon his men now. Father, knowing that his death was sealed with this decision, Mou's body trembled. She wanted to say something, but at that moment, an impatient voice echoed from the Zhang Xian's residence. Audacious! Which idiot is causing a ruckus here? You must be tired of living. If you wish to meet the young master, go out and kneel. Ah! Mou and Mo Tianxue were stunned. Given the huge uproar Liang Qingming stirred, almost every single person in Tianwu royal city was staring at this situation intently. Upon hearing those words, they were dumbstruck, and they nearly spurted blood. This was a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert from Xuanyuan kingdom. To speak such words, everyone immediately hurriedly leaped to the highest location to see who was the one speaking. Perhaps, it might be a formidable figure who could save Tianwu kingdom from this impending catastrophe. However, with a single look, they nearly keeled over. It was a pot-bellied middle-aged man butler Sunday. In the past few days, quite a few people have come into contact with this fellow, so many knew that his cultivation was only at Pigu realm pinnacle. Even in Tianwu kingdom, he stood at the very bottom of the power pyramid with such weak cultivation. How did he find the guts to spout such brazen words? For you to dare spout such words, do you know how powerful is that guy in the sky? Mou and Mo Tianxue glanced at one another, and they trembled in fear. At Xuanyuan realm advanced stage, the other party could be considered as an expert of the highest tier even in Xuanyuan kingdom. For a mere Pigu realm butler to act so arrogantly, the heck. This matter was already hard to resolve, and this fellow just had to anger him further. Without a doubt, a festival of blood would soon begin in this city. While everyone was in a frenzy, Liang Qingming nearly fell from the gold-scaled lightning beast upon hearing those words. He was a famous and respected figure even in Xuanyuan kingdom. He thought that his bellow would send these insignificant ants from a backward kingdom trembling in fear, but to think that there would be someone who would disregard him, even ordering him to kneel outside the heck. Are you brave, or is there a screw loose in your head? I'll count to 3. Get Zhang Xian to scramble out here, or else, I'll destroy the entire residence and have everyone within accompany him to hell. Liang Qingming's face twitched furiously. Chapter 406, Slapping the Princess Consort. Liang Qingming thought that this threat would send the plump man and the servants of the residence into chaos. Under the threat of such an expert, they would surely be scrambling to run as far as they can. But with a single look, his body swayed once more. The personnel in the residence were still working as per normal, as though his presence meant nothing at all. Those who were cultivating continued cultivating, those who were cooking continued cooking, those who were washing continued washing. It was as though he was transparent. Especially for that fatty below, he stared at him with utmost disdain, as though he was staring at an idiot. The heck? What was this situation? Shouldn't a mere 2-star primary master teacher of a Tier 1 kingdom be trembling silently in fear upon seeing a Xuanyuan realm expert like him? Master teachers were the strongest among the same cultivation realm, but such a huge disparity in cultivation couldn't be made up with skills. It was one thing for Zhang Xian to disregard him, but how could that weak fatty act so arrogantly as well? Wasn't he afraid of being killed? This was blatant disrespect. As a commander under the direct command of the Crown Prince, as well as a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert, he was a feared existence no matter where he went. Everyone he walked by would have to bow respectfully to him, and with a bellow, even the emperor of Tianwu kingdom, Mo Tianxue, would have to kneel to him. How dare this weak fatty show such contempt to him? Contempt your head. The more he thought about it, the more furious he got. At that moment, the fatty's voice sounded once more. 3 counts. Hurry up then, but don't say that I didn't warn you. This might be the 3 final counts you'll ever make, damn it. Commander Liang's face turned as black as charcoal, and smoke was threatening to billow from his head. I am the one who is going to slaughter you, and you say that it's the 3 final counts I will ever make. You dare to disregard my honor as a Xuanyuan realm cultivator? You damned fatty, I will slice you apart. Coming to the limit of his tolerance, Commander Liang was just about to lash out and kill a few people to give a stern warning to the others when, Jia, the doors to the main hall opened, and 3 figures walked out. The first one who walked out was a middle-aged man in his 40s, and following behind him were 2 elders dressed in master-teacher robes. However, even the head of Tianwu Kingdom's master-teacher pavilion was only at Zhongshe realm pinnacle, so he automatically disregarded the duo. What's going on? Why is there such a ruckus out here? Without even lifting his head, the middle-aged man frowned and looked at that plump man. Old master, that fellow above demands to meet young master. What a joke, who does he think he is? Does he think that a nobody like him can meet the young master? So, I asked him to scram. Well done. The middle-aged man nodded, approving the plump man's words. Pooh! Liang Qingming staggered once more. It was one thing for that plump man to be spouting nonsense, but to think that the middle-aged man, who seemed like the owner of the residence, to behave the same as well, this was getting way out of hand. Initially, Liang Qingming was still hesitant to go too far. After all, the other party was a member of the Master-Teacher Pavilion. If things were to blow up, it might up disastrous. However, blinded by his rage, he couldn't care less about the consequences now. Since you all are courting death, I'll grant you your wish. Furious, Liang Qingming thrusted his hand, and an overwhelming strength descended from the skies. A huge handprint pushed down straight toward the crowd in the residence. Phantom Pinnacle Battle Technique, Adamantine Palm. The indestructible adamantine palm caused a huge gale to blow in the surroundings, and leaves gushed into the air. The palm possessed a strength beyond 30,000 ding. Even a Xuanyuan realm intermediate expert would be crushed to smithereens in an instant under the overwhelming force. Liang Qingming thought that the other party would tremble in fear immediately after seeing the might of his attack, but the middle-aged man only glanced impassively at the elder beside him and said, "Little Su, I'll leave this fellow to you. Shoot him down along with that bird in the air." "Yes, Yang sure." The elder, who was addressed as Little Su, stepped forward. This Little Su wasn't of huge stature, and there wasn't any imposing disposition to him. More importantly, his legs were clamped tightly together, and his face was pale. It seemed as though he was suffering from some indescribable agony. His hair was unkempt, and he looked as though he had just been beaten up. No matter how Liang Qingming looked at him, this Little Su didn't seem like an expert. To send such a fellow to deal with him? Were the people below insane? He wasn't just the only one. The various experts and influences were also dazed, and the corner of their lips twitched intensely. This was a top-notch expert from Xuanyuan Kingdom. Their princess consort had brought him here to kill you. You should at least send someone fitting to deal with him. What in the world do you mean by sending that pale-faced clamped-legs elder? Aren't you looking down on the other party too much? Su Shi and Ling Shi arriving at the capital was a confidential secret of the Master-Teacher Pavilion. Thus, no one knew that these two ordinary-looking fellows were actually unimaginably powerful experts. Just when everyone's heads were spinning from this ridiculous sight, this Little Su lifted his head and harumphed coldly. Voila! His voice wasn't particularly loud, but it sounded as though a metal being burst apart. Upon colliding with the air, the latter immediately dissipated without any resistance. Pang! After which, Liang Qingming felt a sharp pain on his chest, as though he had been pierced by a sword. A mouthful of blood spewed out, and his vision darkened slightly. His entire body trembled from the impact, and he nearly fell down from the savage beast. This a transcendent mortal expert? The other party didn't even move at all. With just a slight harumph, he was able to neutralize his attack and injure him. No matter how foolish Liang Qingming was, it was clear that this Little Su was beyond his means. Liang Qingming's eyes narrowed, and his body trembled in fear. There wasn't even a single transcendent mortal expert in Xuanyuan Kingdom. How could one appear in a Tier 1 kingdom? Furthermore, given the powerful might the other party was able to harness with a single sound even within the transcendent mortal realm, this Little Su must have reached a high level of accomplishment. The crowd of spectators who were looking at the situation widened their eyes, and their hearts nearly stopped from shock. That weak-looking elder was actually able to neutralize a full-strength attack from a Xuanyuan realm expert with harumph, even nearly pushing the latter down the savage beast from the impact. What was going on? Do you know this master teacher? Mo Tianxue turned to ask his daughter. Mo Tianxue didn't recognize this Little Su, but since the other party was dressed in the master teacher robe, he must be a member of the master teacher pavilion. Where in the world did this formidable figure come from? His strength was way off the charts. This Mou was taken aback by the sight as well. When the assembly bell sounded, she wasn't able to return immediately, so she missed out Su Shi and Ling Shi's introduction. After which, she left right after witnessing Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi's examination. As such, she didn't know of the appearance of the two 4-star master teachers in the master teacher pavilion. Besides, even if she knew, she couldn't have imagined that someone would dare to call a 4-star master teacher Little Su. To be able to command a 4-star master teacher, what kind of fearsome existence was that middle-aged man? Come down. Before anyone could recover from the shock, the slightly hunched Little Su harumphed yet again. Voila! It was as though a sword had flown through the air. Even the gold-scaled lightning beast in the air could react, its body shuddered, and it plummeted straight down. Boom! Along with the landing of the humongous savage beast, dust flew into the air. That arrogant fellow who had threatened to slaughter everyone within the residence crashed onto the floor. Falling from such a great height, it took great effort for Lin Long to regain consciousness. She immediately turned to her father and her younger brother, and with a single look, she nearly turned insane. With this fall, the unconscious Lin Lang's spinal cord broke, and he could potentially breathe his last at any moment. There was no saving him anymore. On the other hand, Lin Ruotian, who was still holding on to the vestiges of his consciousness, was spewing large mouthfuls of blood. His old wounds and new wounds gnawed at his vitality, making it a huge doubt whether he could survive from this ordeal. Lin Long flew into a frenzy. They were here to exact vengeance, and yet, before they could kill a single person or even meet their primary target, Zhang Xian, her father and her little brother were already nearly dead. She was also severely injured from the fall as well. What was this? Commander Liang, what are you doing? Hurry up and kill him. Seated in the room on the gold-scaled lightning beast's back, Lin Long knew very little about the situation outside. All she heard was the conversation between the two. She thought that Liang Qingming was going easy on the other party, so she howled furiously at him. Kill him. Commander Liang's body trembled in agitation, and he nearly fainted. How do I kill him? This old fellow is a transcendent mortal expert. Are you trying to send me to my death? How in the world did the wise crown prince marry a fool like you? Su Shi glanced at Liang Qingming. Kill me. Even though he had achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation, it did little to alleviate the intense pain he was suffering from. He was already in a bad mood, and upon hearing the woman on the savage beast's back talking about killing him, his face immediately darkened. Fat Hat's nodded. Elder, please calm down. Commander Liang shuddered, and he hurriedly rubbed his hands together to plead with the other party. Why are you so afraid of him? He's just a master teacher from a Tier 1 kingdom. What can he do to you? Seeing how useless her subordinate was, even going to the extent of calling the other party elder, Lin Long's rage erupted. She was a smart person, but the situation with her father and her younger brother had clouded her mind. After the fall, they were already on the verge of dying, and at this moment, all that was on her mind was to exact vengeance for them. How dare you disregard a master teacher? Su Shi bellowed. Slap her. Su Shi was an amiable person, but as a 4-star master teacher, he had his own dignity as well. The other party was clearly disregarding the prestige of a master teacher, and this was a taboo for him. Yes, after hesitating for a moment, Liang Qingming eventually turned around and walked over to the room on top of the gold-scaled lightning beast. Even if the person he had to slap was the princess consort, he had no other choice. The person before him was a transcendent mortal expert. If he didn't obey his commands, all of them would die here today. Commander Liang, what are you doing? Upon seeing the other party walk in, Lin Long was taken aback. Before she could say anything else, the other party darted forward, and a slap flew straight toward her cheek. Pa! Without any time to react, Lin Long was sent flying by that slap. Her head crashed onto the ground, and her teeth fell onto the floor. Blood trickled down the edges of her lips. She was a genius, and her cultivation progressed swiftly. However, due to the limitation of her age, she was only a Zhongshe realm advanced stage cultivator. How could she avoid the attacks of a Zhizuan realm advanced stage expert? Pa 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 pa. Since the elder outside didn't ask him to stop, Commander Liang didn't dare to stop either. He walked up to Lin Long and continued striking her. After several consecutive slaps, her beautiful face swelled up as though a pig's face. The slaps had awoken her, and she immediately comprehended the situation here. With eyes overflowing with hatred, she glared at Su Shi and that middle-aged man, Yang Shi. Ever since her birth, all of the way until she became the princess consort, she had lived a smooth-sailing life, and she had never suffered such humiliation. Her hatred was so deep that it couldn't be washed clean even if the water from 3 rivers were to run dry. Chapter 407, Spirit Stones Grades, Enough. Seeing that the lady would die if the slapping continued on, Zhang Xian waved his hands. Just as admiration for Yang Shi's magnanimity was welling up within Su Shi and the others, his voice sounded, "Sun Chang, call Lu Qiang over. He should be the one slapping this woman." Su Shi and Ling Shi. Mo Tianxue and Mou. This woman was the one who ordered the death of Lu Qiang's entire family back then. Since the culprit was here, it was only fitting for Lu Qiang to do the work. Actually, Zhang Xian didn't expect the princess consort to arrive so quickly. However, the other party seemed to have lucked out. Since Su Shi and Ling Shi were here, their vengeance was destined to end in failure. Yes. Sun Chang walked into the residence, and before long, he returned with Lu Qiang beside him. Grand Teacher. On the way, Sun Chang had briefly explained the situation to him, and knowing that the middle-aged man before him was Zhang Xian's teacher, he immediately bowed respectfully upon his arrival. Grand Teacher. Old Master. I finally get it. This must be Zhang Xian's elusive teacher, Yang Xian. Those who were looking at the commotion suddenly came to a realization. It was said that Zhang Xian's teacher possessed unfathomable strength, and he even took in Pavilion Master Qiang as his student. Everyone thought that it was just a rumor and waved it off back then. To think that it would be true. It was no wonder that Zhang Shi didn't hesitate in the least when he destroyed the Lin clan. With such backing, there was indeed no need for him to worry about the consequences at all. That woman is Lin Lang's elder sister, the princess consort of Xuanyuan kingdom. I'll leave her to you. Upon seeing Lu Qiang, Zhang Xian gestured forward. Thank you, Grand Teacher. Seeing that the main culprit behind the deaths of his kin was right in front of him, how could Lu Qiang hold himself back? With reddened eyes, he immediately dashed straight toward Lin Long. What do you intend to do? I'm the princess consort of Xuanyuan kingdom. If you dare to touch me, I'll destroy your entire clan. Frightened, Lin Long retreated swiftly. However, before she could finish her words, she felt excruciating pain on her cheek and, pang, she was sent flying to the side. Even though her cultivation was higher than Lu Qiang's, the consecutive slaps from Commander Liang had left her weak and faint-headed. Under such circumstances, how could she stand against Lu Qiang? In just a short moment, she was pummeled to the point that she couldn't even utter a word, and there wasn't a single spot on her that wasn't bruised. Liang Qingming wanted to help her, but seeing Su Shi's gaze land on him from time to time, he was scared stiff. If only he knew that this would happen, he wouldn't have accompanied the princess consort here. This wasn't exacting vengeance, this was waiting to be tortured. Grand Teacher, thank you for fulfilling my wish. After he was done, Lu Qiang walked back to Zhang Xian and bowed deeply. Just like with Lin Ruotian and the others, Lu Qiang didn't kill her, but he crippled her cultivation. This kind of punishment was definitely worse than death. Zhang Xian waved his hands and said, all right, throw all of them out. He was currently the unparalleled expert, Yang Shi. Since Su Shi didn't kill the other party, he wasn't in a place to say anything else. Lin Long was severely injured and this bodyguard was scared out of his wits, so Zhang Xian reckoned that they wouldn't dare to do anything else. On top of that, with Yang Shi serving as a deterrence, Xuanyuan Kingdom should be hesitant to take any drastic actions. If Yang Shi were to continue remaining idle while insisting for Su Shi to eliminate them, the two 4-star master teachers might get suspicious. Since they weren't a threat anymore, Zhang Xian was unwilling to take the gamble. Thus, he decided to throw them out for now. Yes. Su Shi nodded. Grabbing onto empty air, his Jinqi formed a huge palm which grabbed the gold-scaled lightning beast, Liang Qingming, and the others up, and he threw all of them out. It's over. Mo Tianxue and Mo Yu glanced at one another in disbelief. Initially, they thought that Lin Long's arrival would spell the doom of Tianwu Kingdom. Never in their dreams did they expect that the entire matter would be resolved so easily via the two people who appeared in Zhang Xian's residence. Xiao Yu, go and check on the background of the two master teachers. Why are they so powerful? And how formidable must Zhang Shi's teacher be to command them? Mo Tianxue instructed after a moment of silence. Since the danger was averted, there was no longer any need for Mo Yu to leave. Delighted, Mo Tianxue thought of paying a visit to these powerful figures. Yes. Mo Yu nodded. Even if her father didn't say anything, she had already intended to look into the matter. To neutralize a Zhizuan realm advanced stage expert with a harumph, and to knock down a Zhizuan realm intermediate stage savage beast with another, the strength of this little Su far surpassed her imagination. At the very least, he had to be a 3-star master teacher. Given that such a powerful figure had appeared in the master teacher pavilion, it could be considered as a breach of responsibility for her to be ignorant of it. After the incident, the group returned to the main hall. Honestly speaking, Zhang Xian was also astonished by Su Shi's might. He couldn't imagine that there would be someone in the world who could render a Zhizuan expert helpless with just sound. Even though he knew that the other party was incredibly powerful through the Library of Heaven's path, he didn't think that he would be that impressive. Yang Shi, just as Zhang Xian was wondering when he could gain such strength, Su Shi turned to look at him. May I know where Zhang Shi is? I would like to discuss the matter of the master-teacher tournament with him. After resting for a moment, Su Shi had recovered considerably. The main reason why they came over here from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance was for this matter. It wasn't easy to find a genius of Zhang Xian's caliber, so how could they give up now? He's currently cultivating in seclusion. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. Su Shi nodded in realization. This explained why Zhang Xian didn't appear despite the huge commotion. Yang Shi played a huge role in Zhang Xian's growth, but his current accomplishments were impossible without hard work on his part as well. Then about the master-teacher tournament, since the other party was in seclusion, it would be rude and dangerous to interrupt him at this moment. Su Shi fell into a dilemma. You can tell me about it and I'll relay the message to him. Zhang Xian said. Yes, Su Shi began explaining, the tests for the master-teacher tournament is decided by the heads of the master-teacher pavilions of the various powers participating each year, so there aren't any fixed rules. However, one thing I can confirm is that the rewards will be generous. Those who are placed high in the rankings will be awarded with spirit stones, as well as an opportunity to cultivate in a secret realm. Before he could finish his words, Yang Shi's eyes gleamed. Spirit stones? That's right. Su Shi nodded. Around how many will be awarded? Yang Shi stared at the other party expectantly. He wasn't interested in the master-teacher tournament, but he held high expectations for the spirit stone reward. The higher his cultivation, the greater the demand on spiritual energy. Even with Heaven's Path divine art, it would take a long time for Zhang Xian to achieve a breakthrough just by absorbing spiritual energy from the surroundings. However, if he could obtain sufficient spirit stones, it would be a completely different matter. I don't know the details, but going by traditions, the contestant who takes first place will be awarded 100 middle-tier spirit stones. Su Shi contemplated for a moment before replying. The rules and the prizes for the competition this year hadn't been announced yet, but based on previous occasions, this seemed to be the trend. Middle-tier spirit stones? Zhang Xian blinked his eyes. Due to the tier of Tianwu Kingdom being too low, the records of spirit stone here were lacking. Middle tier, what did that mean? The normal spirit stones we use are low tier. Even though there's plenty of spiritual energy stored within it, it's lacking in purity. Once one's cultivation reaches a certain realm, the quantity of spiritual energy one can absorb from a low-tier spirit stone becomes severely limited. Even though Su Shi was perplexed, he explained the matter regarding the spirit stones. Compared to low-tier spirit stones, middle-tier spirit stones harness a much larger quantity of purer spiritual energy, making it more suited for one to cultivate with. Usually, a middle-tier spirit stone can be traded for 10,000 low-tier spirit stone. However, most people wouldn't be so foolish as to do so. 10,000? Zhang Xian nearly threw the teacup in his hands out. For a single low-tier spirit stone, Zhang Xian had to employ all of his deception means. Yet, just by winning the championship of the Master Teacher Tournament, he could earn 100 middle-tier spirit stone, which was equivalent to 1,000,000 low-tier spirit stones. Are you for real? Yang Shi, it can't be that you don't know about all this? Seeing the unfathomable Yang Shi behaving in such a manner, Su Shi and Ling Shi glanced at one another doubtfully. Once one reached transcendent mortal realm, it would become difficult for one to cultivate via absorbing spiritual energy from the surroundings. Under such circumstances, spirit stones became a necessity. As such, spirit stones were common knowledge among master teachers above 3-star. Why did the powerful Yang Shi behave as though it was his first time hearing of spirit stones? Of course, I know about that. It's just that I happen to remember some matters of the past. Seeing that his agitation nearly did him in, Zhang Xian looked into the distance with the gaze of one who had seen through the vicissitudes of life. The more mysterious he seemed, the more unfathomable he would be to the other party. Oh! As Zhang Xian expected, upon hearing that Yang Shi was reminiscing about his past, Su Shi and Ling Shi chose not to ask on. Then about Zhang Shi participating in the Master Teacher Tournament, Su Shi continued, pushing for an answer about Zhang Shi's participation. This kind of tournament is a good training ground for youngsters, and I think that it'll be beneficial for him to join. Rest assured, I'll talk him into it. Zhang Xian gestured grandly. Are you joking? That is 1,000,000 spirit stones. If he were to miss such an opportunity, he would truly be a fool. This, expecting to be rejected, the two master teachers were stunned upon hearing Yang Shi agree to the matter so readily. Yang Shi, that isn't how you were acting a moment ago. You were clearly resistant to the idea. Why did you change your mind so quickly? To think that even experts were so fickle-minded. All right. Yang Shi, with your words, we're relieved. Even so, at least they had managed to achieve their aim. With this, there would be hope for them to claim a good ranking in this tournament. Su Shi and Ling Shi clenched their fists tightly in excitement. Yang Shi, we'll have to ask you to tell Zhang Shi that he has to reach the Myriad Kingdom Alliance within 3 months for the tournament. All right. Zhang Xian nodded. Su Shi flicked his wrist, and a token appeared in his hands. This is the token for the tournament. Yang Shi, I'll have to trouble you to pass on it to Zhang Shi on my behalf. With this, the apprentices at the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion will lead him to me. Grabbing it, Zhang Xian placed the token into his storage ring. Since Yang Shi has agreed to the matter, we'll take our leave for now and make preparations in advance. We'll be looking forward to Yang Shi and Zhang Shi's arrival. Su Shi clasped his fist. The main reason for the two 4-star master teachers' arrival at Tianwu Kingdom was to look for the genius, Zhang Xian, and determine whether he was worthy to attend the Master Teacher Tournament. Given that Zhang Xian had surpassed their expectations, and they had obtained the other party's guarantee on the matter, it could be said that they had accomplished their mission perfectly. Having met their aim, they decided to take their leave. Zhang Xian nodded. Outside the residence, Mo Hongyi waited nervously. He had heard Commander Liang's shouting from the residence a while ago, but at this moment, the entire residence was completely silent. Could they be fighting with one another? Mo Hongyi clenched his fists tightly. He wanted to charge in to help, but it might be a little too abrupt. He feared that he might incur the displeasure of the other party if he were to do it, and this could hinder him from acknowledging the other party as his teacher. I can only hope that it doesn't blow up, muttering under his breath, just as Mo Hongyi was trying to fathom what was going on inside, the sky above him turned dark, and a gigantic shadow flew across the gates from the residence. Put-ong! 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 Shocked, Mo Hongyi immediately backed away. Then, after calming down, he took a closer look and saw a gigantic savage beast and 3 figures smashing into the pavement not too far away. Their heads were planted in the ground, creating a huge hole in the street. That's the Princess Consort from the Lin clan. Mo Hongyi was taken aback. Chapter 408, Direct Disciples. Weren't these guys the arrogant fellows from before? The domineering commander who was standing imposingly on the savage beast before was half of his body stabbed into the ground as though a seedling. And the main culprit of the entire incident, the Princess Consort, had her face swollen similar to that of a pig. If not for her elegant clothes, no one would have thought that she was out of place amidst of a group of beggars. Even that ferocious savage beast seemed to have been knocked insensible from the impact. This Mo Hongyi's eyes widened as though huge bells. What in the world happened? In the blink of an eye, those arrogant fellows were reduced to such a state. Doubtful, Mo Hongyi heard the sound of another 2 hitting to the ground. Hurriedly turning his gaze over, he saw 2 patients who were flung out from the savage beast crashing into the distance. They were Lin Ruotian and Lin Lang. They were already severely injured before, and after being flung several hundred meters away from a height of several dozen meters, all of their bones were shattered. Their souls left their body, heading straight to the underworld to report their attendance. Father, brother, upon seeing this sight, Lin Lang's blood rushed to her head in agitation, and she fainted. Even to the moment of his death, Lin Ruotian was indignant. He thought that he would be able to get back at Zhang Xian and slaughter those who had dared to humiliate him. Yet, never in his dreams could he have expected that the savage beast would be struck down. Even so, he was still hopeful. No matter what, Commander Liang was still a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert. Yet, he ended up being flung into the air, and after that there was no more after. He came here to exact his vengeance, yet he was done in before he could even meet his sworn enemy. How could his life end so tragically? If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have waited for his daughter. If he had relented earlier, he wouldn't have suffered so many days of humiliation in vain. The Lin clan has truly met their match this time. Indeed. Not only is Zhang Shi talented, he has a good teacher as well. Fighting with him, isn't that no different from committing suicide? To rush over without even trying to investigate the matter clearly, they deserved it. Seeing the pathetic state of the group from Xuanyuan Kingdom, not only did no one pity them, everyone even felt exhilarated. Almost everyone had learned about Lu Chong and the Chu clan's matter by now. The Lin clan had oppressed many smaller clans in the capital throughout the years, and their reputation hadn't been great. Now that they had fallen, everyone swiftly turned against them. This is the doing of Zhang Shi's teacher. Indeed. Someone in the sentry tower saw the entire situation previously. He ordered a master teacher named Little Su or something, I'm not too sure. Regardless of who it is, to be able to throw a Xuanyuan realm expert around so casually, that person possesses fearsome strength, indeed. From now on, Zhang Shi's residence is a forbidden zone. Anyone who dares to barge in will be expelled from the clan. A commotion broke out in the capital. Little Su. You mean that Su Shi was the one who did it? Mo Hongyi's face flushed, and he clenched his fists rightly. As expected of a 4-star master teacher. It was a correct decision to acknowledge one of these two after all. His cultivation would surely soar swiftly in the future. Jia. Just as he walked around the area anxiously for Su Shi and Ling Shi to come out, he heard the gates opened, and 2 figures walked out. Butler's son, we'll be leaving now. If you meet Zhang Shi, tell him that we'll be waiting for him at the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Su Shi clasped his fist. Don't worry, it's a small matter. Sun Chang waved. This Mo Hongyi's body swayed from side to side. That was Su Shi and Ling Shi, 4-star master teachers of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. It was one thing for Yang Shi to not escort them to the door, but why didn't Zhang Shi send them off either? To have a butler do the job, and more importantly, wasn't this butler being a little too disrespectful? Look at his expression, he was obviously being perfunctory and impatient. Impatient your head. It was one thing if you didn't know Su Shi and Ling Shi's identities, but they have just shown their incredible strength. How can you still treat them with blatant disregard? Are you insane, or are you ill? Probably not. That Yang Shi probably possesses unfathomable means. This is why the butler dares to behave arrogantly as well. Mo Hongyi was no fool as well. He soon understood the situation. But then, he fell silent once more. To be able to induce the fear of a 4-star master teacher, how powerful must this Yang Shi be? Back in the master teacher pavilion. You said that teacher addressed Su Shi as Little Su. Staring at the report in shock, disbelief flashed across Pavilion Master Zhang's eyes. Yes. Not only so, Su Shi seems to be exceptionally obedient to Yang Shi's words, Elder Zhu replied. Su Shi is a 4-star master teacher of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, yet he treated teacher with such respect, not even complaining when he was called Little Su. Could teacher's capability be beyond that of a 4-star master teacher? Pavilion Master Qiang knew that Yang Shi was no ordinary person, but he couldn't have guessed that he would be such a formidable figure. To be treated with utmost respect by even a 4-star master teacher, how powerful must he be? After recovering from his shock, Pavilion Master Qiang commented with a sigh, probably only a master teacher of his caliber would be able to groom a talent like Zhang Xian. Despite his young age, Zhang Shi had shown incredible talent. Even if he was talented, he would still require a capable teacher to show him the way. In the very least, Jiang Shu felt that he didn't have the ability to groom a student like Zhang Xian. Right, Pavilion Master. Su Shi and Ling Shi have left Zhang Shi's residence, and they've returned to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance on an aerial savage beast. Elder Zhu reported. Su Shi and Ling Shi are elders of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. They must have a lot of matters to handle, so they couldn't possibly stay for too long. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. Then, hesitating for a moment, he said, make some preparations, let's meet Zhang Shi and his teacher. Most probably, they will be leaving Tianwu Royal City soon as well. He knew about Su Shi and Ling Shi's motive here, and given that they had left, it could only mean that they had achieved their goal. Since the Master Teacher Tournament was in 3 months, Zhang Shi would probably be leaving soon. That's right. Elder Zhu nodded. Zhang Shi was a genius, and a small place like Tianwu Kingdom wasn't sufficient for him to spread his wings. He had to head to somewhere larger for him to soar into the skies. Pavilion Master Jiang and Elder Zhu were right. At this very moment, Zhang Xian was considering the matter of leaving. His cultivation had reached Zongshi realm pinnacle, and without sufficient Jizuan realm cultivation techniques, he couldn't achieve a breakthrough. And it was impossible to find cultivation techniques of that level in Tianwu Kingdom. Thus, Zhang Xian had no choice but to head to higher tier kingdoms. Reverting back to his original appearance, Zhang Xian walked into the main hall. At this moment, Zheng Yang and the others were still kneeling. It had been 2 days since then, and even though their bodies were shaking and threatening to collapse at any moment, their gazes were growing more and more determined. The frivolousness within their eyes had disappeared. The 2 days had sharpened their will and determination. Knowing that his purpose had been met, Zhang Xian nodded. Get up. Zhang Xian gestured before heading to the top seat. Lu Qiang, Zhao Ye, and the others also walked up, and at this moment, all 6 students of Zhang Xian were gathered in this area. I intend to leave Tianwu Kingdom for the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. If any of you are unwilling to follow me, I won't force you. Zhang Xian spoke calmly as he glanced at the crowd. It was time for them to make a choice again. Students weren't slaves. If they weren't willing to follow along with him, it could only mean that their fate as teacher and student had come to an end. I'm willing to follow teacher. Zhao Ye stepped forward. I'm the same as well. Xuanyuan and the others hurriedly spoke up. Without their teacher, they wouldn't possess the strength they did now. They wanted to follow behind their teacher and rise to greater heights. Lu Qiang, what about you? Soon, his 5 students from Tianxian expressed their willingness to pursue Zhang Xian. Only Lu Qiang remained quiet all this while. I've already said that my life belongs to teacher. Naturally, I'll follow teacher no matter where you go. However, before that, I have some matters that I have to attend to. Hesitating for a moment, Lu Qiang replied. Zhang Xian turned to look at him. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance is several 100,000 kilometers away. Once we leave Tianwu Kingdom, it'll be hard to tell when I'll be able to return. I hope that before leaving, I can pay respects to my parents and kin first. Lu Qiang said. Yes, it's only right for you to pay respect to your parents and kin. Zhang Xian replied. Since there was a long journey ahead of them, it was understandable for Lu Qiang to want to pay final respects to his family before leaving. Also, I would like to ask teacher to help me to claim the object that my ancestor left behind. My current strength is still insufficient. Lu Qiang said. Zhang Xian nodded. The object Lu Qiang was referring to probably referred to the letter with Kong Shi's personal handwriting on it. This item was useless to Zhang Xian, but this was an heirloom from Lu Qiang's ancestors. It wasn't surprising that Lu Qiang would want to retrieve it before leaving. Thank you, teacher. Gratitude filled Lu Qiang's eyes. Since you all agreed to following me, then allow me to bring up some rules. Since everyone had agreed to it, Zhang Xian scanned the surroundings, and a stern expression appeared on his face. The relationship between a teacher and student depends on fate. In an academy, you are free to leave a classroom and change your teacher as you please. However, since you all have agreed to follow me, I won't accept that. In a normal teacher and student relationship, even though the students were still expected to respect their teacher, the relationship wasn't binding. Taking Lu Qiang's class for example, even though Bai Laoshi, their previous teacher, had taught them for a considerable period of time, the students didn't feel any guilt acknowledging Lu Laoshi as their new teacher. It was the same in Hengtian Academy as well. If the teacher felt that a teacher's education ability was subpar, they could withdraw and change teachers as they please. Teacher, are you taking us in as your direct disciples? Suddenly, realization struck, and Xuanyuan asked in agitation. Zhao Ye and the others also clenched their fists tightly. There was also a hierarchy to students as well, direct disciple, normal students, and listening in. There was a huge disparity in standing among them. A normal student could change their teacher as they please. However, if a direct disciple were to do this, it would be equivalent to betraying his teacher and his heritage. He wouldn't be able to complain even if those from the same line killed him. Direct disciples were entitled to the secret arts of their teacher, as well as the most detailed guidance. At the same time, their standing was also superior to the other students. But in return, they had to remain loyal to their teacher. At the same time, becoming a direct disciple was an acknowledgement from a teacher to a student. After all, No one would impart their ultimate techniques to someone they didn't acknowledge. Even though Zhao Ye and the others had regarded themselves as Zhang Laosher's direct disciples, the latter had never brought up the topic, and they'd felt a little disappointed over the matter. Thus, upon hearing this matter, they couldn't hold back their excitement. Becoming a direct disciple meant officializing their identities. In the future, they would be able to stand upright when speaking up for their teacher. That's right. However, if you become my direct disciple, you have to follow some of my rules. You must respect me and follow my instructions. You are not to be defiant. Without my permission, you are not to pass down the skills I impart you all. You must treat others magnanimously, and you mustn't bully the weak. Honesty is the basis of trust. You mustn't hide anything from me. Unity is of key. If you feel that you can follow all of these rules, I'll take you in as my direct disciple. If you were to infringe of any of these, I, Zhang Xian, will kill you personally. Placing his hands behind his back, Zhang Xian stood up and spoke sternly. At the very end, it felt as though the air in the room had frozen. Even though his students might seem frivolous, they had held utmost respect for him in their hearts. Zhang Xian felt that this was what he was looking in a direct disciple. But even so, he had to make some things clear beforehand. We are willing to come under Zhang Laosher's lineage to become Zhang Laosher's direct disciple. We'll follow teacher's orders obediently and remain loyal to you until our deaths. Without any hesitation, Zhao Ye and the others kneeled to the floor. Good. Zhang Xian nodded. From now on, Zhao Ye will be your senior while Wang Ying is ranked second, followed by Lu Yang, Zheng Yang, Yuan Tao, then Lu Chong. The 6 of you are to get along harmoniously, and I bar any internal conflicts among you all. Even though Wang Ying was the first student Zhang Xian accepted, she had a weak character. Of the group, only Zhao Ye possessed the insight and cultivation to take on the role of the leader. If Zheng Yang and the others were to lead the group, who knows what kind of trouble they would cause? Yes. The group nodded. With this, the ceremony ended. Autumn of the year 1736, in Tianwu Royal City, Zhao Ye, Zheng Yang, Lu Yang, Wang Ying, Yuan Tao, and Lu Chong became Zhang Shi's direct disciples. Chapter 409, The Crown Prince's Decision. Your Highness, you must redress my grievance. Kill that fellow to avenge me. In a sealed room, a woman whose entire face was swollen kneeled on the floor as she screeched. It was Princess Consort Lin Long, who had been subjected to a violent beating several days ago. She had applied some medicine, and her pain had alleviated. However, the swelling had yet to calm down, and her appearance was still hideous. Seated in front of her was a young man of around 34-year-old. His face was distinctly shaped and, from the occasional authoritative disposition which leaked out of him, one could tell that he was a person of high standing. He was the crown prince of Xuanyuan Kingdom, Ding Mu. Avenge? Pa! Ding Mu's face turned scarlet as he kicked the body of the other party. His body trembled lightly in rage as he bellowed, "Do you know who you offended? How dare you ask me to avenge you?" When Lin Long left the Eastern Palace, Ding Mu happened to be out. After receiving the news, he immediately rushed back to the palace to see what was going on. However, he was still too late. After learning that his wife had been beaten to a tragic state, he immediately sent his men to look into it, and he was nearly scared out of his wits. A genius who broke innumerable records, and on top of that, he had an unfathomable teacher of all the people your Lin clan could offend. Why in the world did you have to offend such a powerful figure? Avenge? How in the world do I avenge you? Not many people knew about Su Shi and Ling Shi's arrival at Tianwu Kingdom, and even official master teachers weren't able to dig out the matter easily. But even so, the fact that Liang Qingming wasn't a match for the other party was an issue. Given how the other party was capable of rendering a Zhizuan realm advanced stage expert and the gold-scaled lightning beast helpless with just a harumph, even if the entire Xuanyuan kingdom were to come together, it wouldn't be a match for him. If I were to try to avenge you, won't the entire kingdom be doomed? You must be joking. Of course I know who he is, a 2-star master teacher from the master teacher pavilion who has a master who seems to be a 4-star master teacher. Kicked by Dingmu, Lin Long didn't panic. Instead, she sneered coldly. Naturally, she also ordered her men to look into the matter. Since you know, then what are you spouting nonsense for? To become a 4-star master teacher, one has to be at minimum transcendent mortal realm. That kind of expert is a powerful figure even within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, needless to say Xuanyuan Kingdom. He isn't someone that you or I can offend. Waving grandly, Dingmu had finally decided. Alright, let's forget about this matter. Don't ever bring it up again. Don't make up your mind so quickly. Lin Long stood up. Your Highness, do you know the reason behind the grudge between my Lin clan and Zhang Xian? Isn't it because you slaughtered the other party's clan? Dingmu frowned. That's right, but do you know why I did that? A bizarre smile crept on Lin Long's face. Dingmu frowned. Regarding this matter, he had no idea at all. Rumor had it that it was because of the conflict between Chu Chang's elder sister and Lin Lang. However, from the looks of it now, the matter wasn't that simple. Lin Long was a person who was extremely protective of her family, but she wasn't someone who couldn't see the bigger picture. Otherwise, no matter how infatuated he was in her, Dingmu would have never allowed her to become his wife. She was usually a composed person, and it was indeed bizarre for her to slaughter an entire clan outright despite knowing the various implications it could bring. Could there have been some hidden secret about the matter? Dingmu's curiosity was piqued, and he turned toward Lin Long with a gaze inviting her to continue on. Your Highness, I know that you wish to enter the Fleeting Cloud sect, and I've been keeping that in mind actually. The key to doing so lies with Chu Chong. Lin Long harumphed. Oh. Dingmu glanced at Lin Long. Even though Xuanyuan Kingdom was a vassal to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, the strongest influence in the surroundings was, without a doubt, this Fleeting Cloud sect. In the past 77 Master Teacher Tournament, it had won the championship 36 times. From this, it could be seen how powerful it was. On the other hand, the best result the Myriad Kingdom Alliance had produced was only 23rd place, 5th from the bottom. Dingmu was the crown prince of Xuanyuan Kingdom, and he would eventually inherit the throne. However, his ambitions didn't just stop here. He had only thought of Xuanyuan Kingdom as his stepping stone, and his eyes were set on the wider world outside. His current aim was to be a disciple of the Fleeting Cloud sect, but he had been unable to find a suitable opportunity to become one. Once he succeeds and receives the best grooming resources, his cultivation would surely soar, and becoming a transcendent mortal, or even reaching greater heights, wouldn't just be a dream. Just that, the Fleeting Cloud sect was a powerful organization with high bars, and joining it was no easy feat. On top of that, Dingmu was the crown prince of a neighboring influence. Thus, without the recommendation of an insider, it was practically impossible. That Chu clan may seem like an unimpressive and shabby clan now, but several 10,000 years ago, it was an extremely formidable clan. Their ancestors even unintentionally saved the life of Sage Min. Lin Long said. Sage Min? You mean one of the 72 sages under Consort Min Shi? Narrowing his eyes, Dingmu's breathing hastened. Consort had 3,000 known disciples, and of them, the most formidable ones were known as the 72 sages. They had participated in the creation of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and they were each considered as one of its founders. Unintentionally saved his life. Wasn't this Chu clan impressive then? Indeed. Precise due to this, they received a letter with Consort's handwritten reply on it. They took it as their family heirloom, and they passed it down from generation to generation. Glancing at Dingmu, Lin Long continued, even if it's just a single word, the value of handwritten words from Consort is unimaginable. I believe your highness should understand it even if I don't say too much about it. If you can obtain this and hand it over to the master of Fleeting Cloud sect, becoming an inner disciple wouldn't be a problem. In fact, it shouldn't be a problem for you to become a direct disciple, or even take on the role of an elder. This, Ding Mu's body trembled in agitation. Kong Shi, the world's teacher. The #1 expert in history. Contained within his handwritten words were the laws of the world, and his students had already taken all of them for themselves. Such treasures would never reach the outside world. Even a 6-star master teacher would happily accept a person as his student if the other party were to present Kong Shi's personal handwriting to him. It was simply too valuable. Putting aside the Myriad Kingdom alliance, even the 26 other influences in the region might not even have one of such treasure yet. To think that the Chu clan would possess it. This Ding Mu's breathing hastened, and he felt his tongue went dry. Since you made a move on the Chu clan 2 years ago, you should have eradicated all traces of them. Why did you intentionally leave a remnant running about? Lin Long harumphed coldly. That fellow thought that just because he changed his name to Lu Qiang and hid in the Tianwu Academy, we wouldn't be able to find him. What a joke. Our Lin clan has the seeking mouse. Even if he were to don on a full disguise, we'd still be able to find him easily. Lu Qiang had been holing himself up in Tianwu Academy, rarely heading to the streets to avoid any attention. He thought that by doing so, the Lin clan wouldn't notice him. Yet, it turned out that the Lin clan had already grasped his whereabouts, just that they chose not to make a move. After all, even if the Lin clan were to lose track of Lu Qiang, the seeking mouse was more than capable of tracking him down. The Lin clan would have dominated the Tianwu royal city in vain if it couldn't even track down a Pigu realm teenager. The members of the Chu clan are obstinate, and no matter how we questioned them, we were unable to locate the whereabouts of that object. Thus, we intentionally left one alive to bring us to it. A savage glint flashed across Lin Long's eyes as he said, "Yet, that fellow sure was patient. For the past 2 years, he didn't do anything at all. Initially, we were planning on capturing him to interrogate him, yet before we can make a move, this fellow found himself a good teacher who was willing to stand up for him." At this point, Lin Long clenched her fists tightly, and resentment scrunched her face. Even though she had married into the Xuanyuan kingdom, and she rarely returned back to her maternal family, she had been keeping an eye on the matter there. It was due to the importance of the letter that Lin Long even went to the extent of building the expensive communication wall in the Lin clan to make it convenient for them to exchange messages. Who would have that this wall wouldn't send her news of the handwritten letter, but of the destruction of the Lin clan? A good teacher? I doubt so. Most probably, that Zhang Xian knew about Kong Shi's handwritten reply in advance. Otherwise, there is no reason for a Zhongshi realm pinnacle 2-star master teacher to go all out for a student, offending the powerful Lin clan and Xuanyuan kingdom. Liang Qingming interjected by the side. He was a confidant of the crown prince, and as such, the crown prince didn't bother hiding such secrets from him. That's right, that must be the reason. Otherwise, even with Yang Shi as his backing, there's no reason for him to offend the Lin clan for no reason and disregard the authority of Xuanyuan kingdom. Lin Long screeched. If not for this, she truly couldn't understand why a 2-star master teacher who had such a bright future ahead for him would go through all of this trouble for a student he had just met a few days ago, waging war with the Lin clan, and beating up her, the princess consort of Xuanyuan kingdom. Alright, the important matter at hand isn't Zhang Xian's motive. Ding Mu raised his hand to halt the vehement discussion of the two. His eyes reddened slightly in greed as he said, "It would be worth offending even the entire Myriad Kingdom alliance for Kong Shi's handwritten reply, needless to say a 2-star master teacher. If your words are true, then taking this risk will be worthwhile." The Myriad Kingdom alliance was powerful, but compared to the 26 other powers in the surroundings, it was ranked at the very last. As long as he laid his hands on the handwritten reply, he would be able to win the fleeting Cloud sect over to his side. Even if he had to offend the Myriad Kingdom alliance in the midst of doing so, it would still be a huge gain. That's right, Your Highness. You must make your decision quickly. I've already sent someone to look into the matter, and Zhang Xian seems to be leaving Tianwu Royal City. He has already bid the personnel of the Master-Teacher Pavilion farewell, and just this morning, he was seen heading for Tianwu mountain range. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance is in the south, yet he headed for the southwest. If I'm not wrong, he must be looking for this letter. It'll be hard for us to lay our hands on the letter once they obtain it and bring it to the Alliance. Lin Long hurriedly said. Previously, she only acted rashly due to the rage from seeing the tragic state her father and younger brother were in. After being pummeled by Lu Chong, she woke up, and she made many preparations in advance. It's indeed impossible to lay our hands on it once it's delivered to the Alliance, but, Ding Mu frowned, he has his teacher and the two elders beside him. Ding Mu wasn't worried about Zhang Xian, but his teacher and the little Su, who wounded Liang Qingming, were huge problems. With transcendent mortal experts accompanying him, he would be dead before he could close in on Zhang Xian. Don't worry, Your Highness. Little Su and the other elder have already left yesterday, and when Zhang Xian left this morning, Yang Shi didn't tag along with him. He only brought his students and some retainers along with him. Lin Long replied. Su Shi and Ling Shi didn't intentionally hide their departure, so it wasn't hard to look into the matter. This morning, Zhang Xian and his group left on the Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast, and Pavilion Master Jiang sent him off personally. Lin Long's spies were among the crowd who saw him off, and none of them saw Yang Shi. He didn't tag along. Great, there are many savage beasts in Tianwu mountain range, and there are many experts under Zhizuan realm who have died there. As long as we settle this matter properly, no one will be able to trace the matter back to me. Ding Mu stood up, and a callous glint flashed across his eyes. It's decided then. Kill him. Chapter 410, Finding the Old Residence. Why are you here? Seeing the lady before him, Zhang Xian fell speechless. After accepting Zhao Ye and the others as his direct disciples, Zhang Xian had finished dealing with all of the miscellaneous matters in Tianwu Kingdom. Thus, he summoned the Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast and left immediately. Knowing the limits of their capabilities, Lu Shi and Lu Sun chose to remain in Tianwu Kingdom. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance was filled with innumerable experts, and they had no backing there. On the other hand, they had the protection of the royal family and the Master-Teacher Pavilion here in Tianwu Kingdom. Thus, they took the initiative to stay. Only Sun Chang insisted on following with Yang Shi. Thus, Zhang Xian took him along with him. It was exactly 10 days since Zhang Xian had arrived in Tianwu Kingdom. His cultivation had risen from Tongxian Realm Pinnacle to Zhongshu Realm Pinnacle, and his physical body possessed the might nearly equivalent to a Zhizuan Realm primary stage expert. He also gained a new student, Lu Chong. As for his occupations, he passed the 2-star Master Teacher examination, and his 3-star Painter emblem just arrived last night. Due to his lacking cultivation, the Apothecary Guild and Physician Guild weren't allowed to allocate his 3-star emblems for the time being. Thus, his current occupations were as such: 2-star Master Teacher, 3-star Apothecary, 3-star Physician, 3-star Painter, 2-star Beast Tamer. His stop at Tianwu Kingdom had been rather fruitful. In just 10 days, Zhang Xian achieved what others might never have been able to do even if they dedicated their entire lives to it. I would also like to visit the Myriad Kingdom Alliance to watch the Master Teacher Tournament. It can't be that you wish to dump me here. Mou stared at the youngster before her furiously. What the heck? Even if we can't progress any further, surely we can remain as friends. How can you leave for Myriad Kingdom Alliance without bidding me farewell? Do you consider yourself a buddy? It is fortunate that I have made preparations in advance and immediately rode the viridescent eagle after you. Otherwise, I would have surely missed you. As a master teacher and the princess of Tianwu Kingdom, it wasn't too difficult for Mou to look into the matter of Su Shi and Ling Shi, as well as the master teacher tournament. Alright, I'll bring you along. Zhang Xian gave up. In any case, there was sufficient space on the back of the Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast. It wasn't cramped even with his 6 students, Sun Qiang, and MOU. He couldn't be bothered with the infuriated MOU, so Zhang Xian stood by the window and gazed outward. White clouds overlapped one another, reminiscent of a boundless field of snow. In the midst between clouds, he could catch a glimpse of lush mountains. It felt rejuvenating. Teacher, Lu Chong walked over to Zhang Xian and said, in order to prevent the unfilial descendants of the Chu clan from handing the letter over to the hands of others, they took precautions by hiding it in an old residence on the Tianwu mountain range. I only happened to hear my father bring the matter up. I roughly know the location, but I'm not too sure for the exact spot. It's alright, we can slowly look for it later on. Lu Chang's clan had given up their life to guard this heirloom. It was best if they could find it. Teacher, it's around this area. Half a day later, Lu Chong pointed. The area is huge, how can we find it like that? Leaping off the back of the howling firmament beast, Xiaoye glanced at the surroundings and sighed. What stood before them was a gigantic mountain valley. The terrain was bumpy, and towering trees filled the area. Putting aside finding an old residence, they couldn't even see into the distance. More importantly, there were many savage beasts in the area. If they were to accidentally barge into a savage beast's nest, they would die indignantly. I'm not too sure either. Lu Chong scratched his head awkwardly. He had heard the elders of his family speaking about the rough geographical terrain, but he hadn't been here before, so he wasn't too sure. To find an old residence on such a vast mountain range even a year wouldn't be sufficient. MOU shook her head. She knew that Lu Chong wanted to look for an item before heading to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, but she didn't know what it was. However, the area before them was simply too large. The vast mountain range was filled with plants, and on top of that, the old residence was likely to be hidden by a formation. How could they find it under such overwhelmingly unlikely odds? Teacher, after taking a look around, the crowd eventually gave up. Thus, all eyes gathered on Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian shook his head. There's no use asking me, I've never been to the Chu clan's old residence before. Halfway through his words, Zhang Xian's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said, wait, I just thought of a good idea. You have an idea? Everyone froze for a moment before turning to look at Zhang Xian with glowing eyes. MOU was also curious. Even Lu Chong himself didn't know where the old residence was, so what kind of idea could Zhang Xian come up with? Just as they were perplexed, the young man before them took out an empty book, and he drew an arrow and scribbled a few words on it. Then, slowly rotating on the spot, he mumbled, the Lu clan's old residence is in this direction, this direction, this direction. MOU, Xiaoye, and the others were staggered. They thought that Zhang Xian would come up with some brilliant means, but upon seeing this sight, they nearly fainted on the spot. Taking out a book to draw an arrow to confirm the direction. And you still dare to say that your idea is good? Where did your confidence come from? If you wish to fool us, you should at least do it better. Aren't you being too perfunctory? Alright, this direction. After spinning an entire circle, Zhang Xian confirmed the direction and pointed forward. MOU staggered once more. Sometimes, it seemed like this Zhang Shi possessed unparalleled talent. At other times, he felt so ridiculous that it made one want to smack his head. Are you sure that this method is feasible? MOU asked, unable to hold back her doubts. Of course. Zhang Xian nodded seriously. The method I use involves a complex calculation of the position of the stars, the mountains, and the rivers, and along with a profound comprehension of the universe, I am able to even locate treasures, needless to say, determine a direction. The Library of Heaven's path could determine right from wrong. As long as the direction he was pointing to reflected no flaws, it would mean that it was the correct direction. However, there was no way Zhang Xian could explain this. Position of the stars, the mountains, and the rivers. Profound comprehension of the universe. The group stared at one another. Grabbing a book, scribbling an arrow and a few words, rotating on the spot, and you tell me that it involves all of that? Can you come up with anything more nonsensical than that? Forget it. Since we can't find the direction either, we might as well listen to his words. Mou felt constipated. Why did she have to follow this fellow? She deeply suspected that at this rate, they might get lost forever in this forest. Thus, after Zhang Xian reached the end of a path that he determined, or that there were new splits in the path before them, Zhang Xian would take his book out and rotate on the spot. 2 hours later, they arrived at a kernel. This is it. Zhang Xian pointed forward. Glancing over, everyone was taken aback. Amidst the greenery, they saw the roof of several rock residences. However, they looked slightly blurred, as though they were hidden in some formation. This must be the location. It's exactly the same as my father's description. Lu Chang's eyes lit up in anticipation. Upon hearing Lu Chang's confirmation, everyone's eyes widened, and their gazes hurriedly shot toward Zhang Xian. They were on the verge of going insane. Even Lu Chang, the person in question, couldn't find the direction. Yet, just by scribbling on a book and rotating on the spot, they all thought that Zhang Xian was fooling about, but to think that it would actually work. Could they have truly misunderstood him? Did it really involve what stars, mountains, and rivers? Otherwise, how did he manage to find the location? Thinking back on it now, ever since the other party took out the book and turned around with it, the location they trod on had been straight, and they didn't stumble by any savage beast's nest along the way, despite the odds. Even if one were to know the way beforehand, surely it was impossible to maneuver so precisely. More importantly, the location they were standing on happened to be the eye of the formation. It was due to them standing here that they were able to see the rock residences. If it was anywhere else, their sight would have been blocked by the formation. In other words, if they didn't know the location beforehand, they would have been fooled by the formation and walk by it. Despite not knowing where it was, Zhang Xian was able to determine the precise location of the old residence. How in the world did this fellow do it? Forget it, he isn't human. Unable to make sense of this situation, Mou could only shake her head with a bitter smile. Ever since she'd met this fellow, he had been amazing her with all kinds of unimaginable means. There were too many things to him that couldn't be comprehended with common sense. If she really tried to rationalize it all, she would probably die of exhaustion first. Let's go in. Ignoring the dazed crowd, Zhang Xian walked straight toward the kernel. Teacher, wait a moment. This formation is extremely dangerous. Lu Chong hurried forward to stop Zhang Xian. According to my father, only the blood of a Chu clan descendant can stop the formation. The blood of a Chu clan descendant? Zhang Xian glanced at Lu Chong. If I'm not wrong, I have to drip a droplet of my blood on the formation-controlling rock for a path for us to appear. Without this formation protecting the old residence, the area would have long been scavenged by humans or savage beasts. Lu Chong explained. Coming to a realization, Mou and the others nodded. Given that the old residence was still able to retain its original appearance despite the innumerable years since it was abandoned, the formation truly possessed incredible might. So far, it seemed to be effective in warding away humans and savage beasts. If one were to abruptly step into such a formidable formation, huge trouble might ensue. Then, give it a try. Mou urged. Without wasting a word, Lu Chong looked around the area and a troubled look flashed on his face. His father had told him that he had to drip a droplet of his blood on the formation-controlling rock for it to stop, but which of these innumerable rocks was it? The entire call was filled with at least 1,000 bizarre rocks. If he were to drip a droplet of blood on every single one of them, he would probably die of anemia before the formation stopped. That teacher, I can't find the formation-controlling rock. A moment later, Lu Chong returned with a sheepish look. His elder sister was a genius formation master, but he wasn't. There were many secret manuals on formations in his clan, but he didn't like reading them, and he never did. In the end, when he visited the old residence of his ancestors, he wasn't even able to find the formation-controlling rock at all. You can't find it? Zhang Xian was taken aback. He briefly looked around the surroundings before pinching his glabella. I can't find it either. Even though he had taken in quite a sizable sum of books on formation, this formation was clearly above grade 3, beyond the level of Tianwu Kingdom. With his current knowledge on formations, it was difficult for him to find it as well. Eventually, Zhang Xian shook his head. Forget it, let's not bother finding the formation controlling rock. Lu Chong was taken aback. Then how do we enter? Simple. Zhang Xian stepped forward. Wang. As soon as he stepped into the formation, it started shaking vigorously. Then, lifting his foot, he kicked straight at a certain point. Who? The formation stopped. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. All right, we can enter now. Lu Chong, Mou, and the others. Chapter 411, He is my teacher. The difference of a subgrade in a formation could easily mean a difference in might by twofold, and the difficulty in finding its core would increase exponentially. Everyone thought that Zhang Shi was already formidable to stop a grade 3 primary formation with a single kick, but upon seeing this sight, they finally realized grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, these numbers meant nothing to him. As long as he was around, even the most formidable formations would be destroyed with a single kick. Lu Chang's mouth twitched violently, and he shook his head vigorously, as though trying to wake himself up from a dream. His father had once told him that this formation was unimaginably formidable. His ancestors had reinforced it again and again over the countless generations, and profound wisdom was harnessed within it. But from the looks of it now, wisdom my head. Before his teacher, all of this meant nothing at all. Since the formation had stopped, the crowd immediately walked toward the rock residences. It was clear that there was a long history to those few simple rock residences. Even though there were descendants who came from time to fix it, it was still severely damaged by wear and tear. Go on. Zhang Xian stopped before the rock residences. This was an object that Lu Chang's ancestor had left for him. Zhang Xian's role was only to accompany him. Since there was no more danger now, it didn't matter whether he tagged behind Lu Chong or not. Yes, teacher. Lu Chong nodded and walked in with reddened eyes. Back then, when his parents and kin were killed, he didn't have the time to collect their bones before escaping. Thus, he created several tablets for them yesterday to place alongside the ancestors. In a way, this was fulfilling the final regret he had regarding his clan. Things rarely go the way we want. Let's go. Understanding the other party's emotions, Zhang Xian sighed. Teacher. Lu Chong stepped forward and proffered a letter to Zhang Xian. It was a simple, ancient bamboo scroll, and its worn-out exterior betrayed its age. Even so, it seemed to be crafted using some kind of unique method, making it extremely resilient. Knowing that this was the letter which Kang Shi's personal handwriting was on, Zhang Xian took it and opened it. Honestly speaking, Zhang Xian also felt curious toward the world's teacher, Kang Shi. Even though he wouldn't stoop down to taking his student's possession for his own, it shouldn't be much of a problem for him to peer into the contents. Unrolling the scroll, an ancient aura immediately unfurled from within. The handwriting for the former half was simple, it wasn't particularly astounding. But, even though the latter half only consisted on several words, the imposing aura it exuded felt as though a massive mountain was weighing on one. The content was simple, and it was indeed an ordinary letter. Most probably, Lu Chang's ancestor sent the letter, and in an attempt to return the favor, Sage Min requested for his teacher to write a few words before sending it back. Looking at the personal handwriting of Kang Shi, Zhang Xian felt a grand aura gushing into his head. All of a sudden, he reached the state of heart of tranquil water, and fell into a trance. Soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy. Rumors had it that there were some formidable master teachers who were able to harness their spirit and their understanding of the universe into their calligraphy, and looking at it frequently was helpful in raising one's soul depth. This was also known as soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy. However, this kind of tempering required a harmonization in spirit. Unless one was in a teacher-student relationship or a blood-related kin of the calligrapher, the chances of this phenomenon occurring were nearly zero. Out of 10,000 people, it might not even activate once. Zhang Xian and Kong sure weren't in a teacher-student relationship, and they weren't blood-related either. Yet, for it to be activated instantly, Zhang Xian's luck was truly astounding. Boom! Holding the letter, Zhang Xian felt his will of mind stabilizing, and his soul depth slowly rose. It was as though he had fallen into some unique state, and he stood in a daze. Your Highness, it seems like they have obtained the letter. Behind a giant boulder above the call, Liang Qingming clasped his fist and reported. After deciding to take the letter for themselves, Ding Mu, Lin Long, and the others had immediately rushed over. The one they were going to strike down was a talented 2-star master teacher, and if they were found out, they would be in danger. However, as long as they succeeded, the returns would be immense. As the student of a suspected 4-star master teacher, Zhang Xian would surely have many life-preserving means on him. Thus, we've got to kill him in a single shot. We mustn't give him any opportunity to strike back. Otherwise, once he sends a rescue signal or activates one of his trump cards, it would be difficult for us to kill him anymore. Ding Mu instructed with a grim expression. But of course, our priority is to obtain that letter. Since Yang Shi was willing to let Zhang Xian venture out alone, he must have entrusted several life-saving tools to him. Thus, they had to strike swift and deadly. Your Highness, don't worry. Liang Qingming nodded. Go. Ding Mu nodded gravely. If he chose to simply steal the letter, there was a high chance he would be exposed. By then, if Yang Shi decided to stand up for his student, the entire Xuanyuan kingdom might be destroyed. On the other hand, if he were to kill Zhang Xian, he could create a facade of him being killed by savage beasts. By the time Yang Shi truly tracked them down, he would have already found a backing in the fleeting clouds set through the letter, and there would be nothing for him to worry about. The master-teacher pavilions might be under the same headquarters, but there was still rivalry among the various powers. Using an analogy, it was just like the feudal system. Although the governors were all under the royal court, there were still some rivalry and feuds among the various territories. Regarding the rivalry among the master-teacher pavilions, as long as they didn't commit immoral acts, the headquarters wouldn't interfere. Competition induced advancement, and only with a suitable amount of competition would humans reach greater heights. As such, the master-teacher pavilion pushed for such rivalries as well. Yes. Hearing his order, Liang Qingming drove the Zhenqi in his body, and with a flick of his wrist, a sharp sword appeared in his hands. Voila! In a flash, he leaped out from the boulder, and as swift as a flash of lightning, his sword headed straight toward Zhang Xian. Pushing the might of a Zhizuan realm advanced stage expert to the brim, in the blink of an eye, he covered the distance of several hundred meters between them. The formation had been stopped, and there was no other defensive mechanism in the kernel. As such, there was nothing to stop Liang Qingming's charge. Zhang Xian was currently in a trance from the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy, so he didn't notice the other party approaching. Even more so, Mou, Lu Chong, and the others didn't think that someone would assault them in such a remote area. Upon seeing the brilliant gleam of the sword and hearing a sonic boom, everyone's eyes narrowed, and their faces immediately warped in shock upon seeing Liang Qingming. Teacher! Zhang Xian! Young master! Loud bellows reverberated in the call, and everyone's body trembled in astonishment. Teacher, careful! At the current moment, the one standing the closest to Zhang Xian was Lu Chong. Upon seeing the brilliant gleam from the sword, he could tell that the other party would surely die if the sword were to strike him, and the thought of it sent him into a panic. To avenge him, his teacher confronted the Lin clan alone without a word of complaint. To raise his cultivation, his teacher was willing to pay a huge price, yet didn't expect anything in return, imparting battle techniques and explaining cultivation techniques. lecturing the basic principles a human should have, and deciphering the essence of cultivation. All of these, he did on his initiative, even going far beyond what that was expected of him. Without his teacher, he would remain an average cultivator for his entire life, doomed to never be able to exact vengeance. Without his teacher, it was just a matter of time before the Lin clan found him and silenced him. It was teacher who brought him out of his sinkhole and gave him the dignity to face his dead kin. This was the man who he respected and admired. He couldn't allow anything to happen to him. If you were to cultivate on like that, you won't even reach Pishui realm in 10 years. At this rate, you will be dead before you can exact your vengeance. You don't have to bother how I know of it. Your vengeance is both a motivation as well as a hindrance to your cultivation. You are suppressing your worries too deep within, and it has suppressed your cultivation, making it difficult for you to achieve a breakthrough. I know that the reason why you refuse to speak is because you're afraid that you might accidentally speak of your enemy's name and make them aware of your existence. Don't worry, as long as you believe in me, I promise you that you will be able to exact your vengeance within 10 days. It's your choice to choose whether you want to believe me or not. However, you'll only get this one chance. Pardon me, but I happen to know the assassin you speak of. He's my student, and I am his teacher. Boom. His encounters with Zhang Laoshe flowed through his head, and his words resounded in his mind. All of a sudden, his entire body moved on its own accord. In the blink of an eye, he had already leaped several meters away, standing right before Zhang Xian. Puha! Liang Qingming's sword also happened to reach at this very instant. It stabbed into his chest, and the Jinqi of a Zhizuan realm expert gushed into the other party's body through the sword, frenziedly wrecking his physical functions. Sensing the other party's sword qi ravaging through his body, threatening to tear his entire body apart at any moment, Lu Chong bellowed furiously. His hands stretched forward and grabbed the other party's sword firmly. Not expecting his sure-kill technique to be blocked by this fellow, Liang Qingming's face darkened. He was just about to pull out his sword and strike Zhang Xian, but he realized that the other party was holding onto his sword firmly as though a sword stuck in a boulder. No matter how hard he tugged on it, it refused to move at all. Let go. He couldn't have imagined that a Zhongshe realm fellow would have blocked his attack. Liang Qingming was furious and anxious. Roaring furiously, he drove his Jinqi into the other party's body, intending to kill him before striking down Zhang Xian. I won't allow you to hurt him because, Lu Chong felt his life force slowly dissipating under the furious surge from the other party's Jinqi, but he didn't regret his actions at all. Instead, he stared at Liang Qingming with unwavering determination. He's my teacher. Author's notes: the fourth arc, He is my teacher, has to an end. The next arc, Invincible, will unfold from next chapter onward. In He is my teacher, I hope to highlight the mutual respect and deep relationship between a teacher and his students, and fortunately, it went as I planned. Due to my personal reasons, family issues, and my work, there are some parts that I'm not too satisfied, but overall, I think I still brought out the main idea that I wished to express. Because I am a teacher myself as well, I can relate much more to this. Being a teacher shouldn't be only about constantly giving, and being a student shouldn't only be about constantly accepting as well. The relationship should be built on mutual respect, trust, and consideration, and only through such can the relationship run deep. As for Lu Chong, as shown by the name of the arc, is destined to become the final sacrifice for the climax. But of course, there's no need to worry. This book won't be one on tragedies, as those who have followed my previous book, Endless Dantian, would know. I don't like tragedies and I don't intend to write them. I know I haven't really marked the chapters by arcs, and QI doesn't have the function yet. But for those who are interested, Chapter 1, 80, The Teacher on the Verge of Expulsion, Chapter 81, 238, Freshman Tournament, Chapter 239, 315, I Am a Master Teacher, Chapter 316, 411, He is my teacher. Chapter 412, Avenge Him. Lu Qiang. After hearing the anxious bellows, Zhang Xian stepped out of his trance from the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy, and the first sight that appeared before him was Lu Qiang's chest being pierced by a sword. Countless thoughts immediately exploded in his head, and his eyes reddened uncontrollably. Even though he met this student considerably later than his other direct disciples, the other party held the greatest trust and most earnest emotions for him. Die! Bellowing furiously, Zhang Xian's head jolted, and a golden book suddenly appeared. All of a sudden, a might capable of causing the entire world to crumble appeared. A gale rose, and the clouds swiftly flew by. A book as heavy as a mountain abruptly fell straight on Commander Liang's head. Pshaw! Without the slightest obstruction, as though a watermelon crushed by a steel hammer, his head burst into bloodied remnants. Under the intense shock wave from the blow, a huge hole, several hundred meters deep and wide, appeared in the kernel. What? Ding Mu, Lin Long, and the others, who were hiding behind the boulder, preparing to launch a second wave of assault, were dumbstruck with terror. They didn't think that the Zhizuan realm advanced stage commander Liang could be destroyed by an object the other party thrown out casually. Their faces paled, and they nearly fainted from fear. They knew that Yang Shi would surely bestow Zhang Xian with some life-saving treasure, but how could they have known that it would be such a fearsome object? Even transcendent mortal experts weren't capable of striking out a huge hole in the ground. Escape, knowing that it was impossible to withstand such might, Ding Mu didn't dare to hesitate in the least. He immediately turned around to flee. Beast tamer Zhou Jin also quickly followed suit. The two of them had reached Zhizuan realm, and their speed was astonishing. In just 2 breaths, their silhouettes turned into a white flash, and they were already 100 meters away. Your Highness, wait for me, not expecting her husband, as well her greatest backer, to abandon her without any warning, Lin Long hurriedly chased him with a ghastly pale face. Die! Upon seeing someone run out from the boulder, how could Zhang Xian not tell what was going on? Roaring frenziedly, he commanded the golden page rotating in the air toward Lin Long. Boom! The entire ground quaked violently. Yet again, a huge hole several meters wide appeared. Smashed by the immense might of the golden book, Lin Long was reduced to meat paste. Having fled swiftly, Ding Mu and Zhou Jin managed to escape the crisis. Ah, hurry up and get on the savage beast. Seeing the sight behind them, the duo felt even more frightened. At this moment, Ding Mu couldn't care less about anything else. Leaping onto the back of the gold-scaled lightning beast, he immediately commanded it to fly as far away as it could. Zhang Xian's mystic tool was simply too powerful. The might of his tool could even smash a transcendent mortal expert easily, needless to say them. If they couldn't escape, the only thing that awaits them would be death. Die! Howling furiously, Zhang Xian was just about to send the golden page straight toward the duo and the savage beast when, whang! The book disappeared. In the next moment, an indescribable fatigue overwhelmed him, leaving him groggy-headed, ready to faint at any moment. Lu Qiang, knowing that it was impossible for him to catch up to a Zhizuan realm intermediate stage savage beast, Zhang Xian withstood his dizziness to examine the condition of his student. The other party's eyes were tightly shut, and he had already lost consciousness. However, as though delighted to see that his teacher was safe, even though he couldn't open his eyes, a faint smile hung on his lips. He was still tightly holding on to the sword on his chest, unwilling to let go even upon death. As though he was declaring that even upon death, as long as teacher was fine, everything was all right. Heaven's path Shinchi can cure all wounds, you'll be fine. Tears that felt like burning oil flowed down Zhang Xian's cheeks. Grasping the other party's palm, Zhang Xian furiously infused the Heaven's Path Shinchi within him into the other party's body. Teacher, how did you know that my purpose is to exact vengeance? Lu Laoshi, please guide me, you can't hurt him, because he's my teacher. Recalling the bits and pieces of the youngster before him, Zhang Xian trembled in agitation. After 2 years of silence, Lu Qiang had become a reticent person. During their time together, he didn't speak much. Most of the time, what Zhang Xian saw was his determined gaze and reliable back. In order to exact his vengeance, Lu Qiang knelt in front of the academy for 7 days straight and remained silent for 2 years. Despite the unimaginable pain from the poison tempering, Lu Qiang persisted on with it. Even though he knew that the Lin clan was powerful, he still charged straight at them. This reticent but determined youngster felt cold, but his heart was filled with warmth. To protect the teacher that he respected and admired from the bottom of his heart, he was willing to give in his own life. Lu Qiang, my student, I have failed to protect you. Wake up, give me a chance to make it up to you. Zhang Xian infused the heaven's path Xinqi furiously into the other party, but Lu Qiang's slim figure didn't budge at all. Seeing the frenzied look on the young man before her, Mou's face paled. Everything happened too quickly. By the time Mou saw Yang Qingming, it was already too late. She thought that Zhang Xian would meet his demise. Yet, she couldn't have imagined that a student would give up his life just to save him. Mou clenched her fists tightly and walked forward. Zhang Xian. She bellowed, but there was no response. Zhang Xian. She shouted once more, and only then did the most radiant genius of Tianwu Royal City raise his head blankly, as though he had lost his soul. Don't panic. You possess unparalleled medical skills. Lu Qiang will be fine. Feeling a deep piercing pain in her heart upon seeing the state of the man before her, Mou consoled. Right, my medical skills. Upon the other party's reminder, Zhang Xian finally recovered. Focus returned to his blank and soulless eyes. That's right. On top of his medical skills, he had the Library of Heaven's Path. There was nothing that could hide from the heavens. As long as Lu Qiang wasn't reduced to ashes, there would surely be a solution for his situation. A flicker of hope appeared in Zhang Xian's eyes. Flaws. Zhang Xian thought, and a book appeared in his head. He hurriedly flipped through it. There's still hope for him. Upon seeing the contents on it, Zhang Xian's body trembled. In an instant, his entire face turned red. He thought that being stabbed by the sword of a Zhizuan realm expert, Lu Qiang's death was inevitable. Yet, there was still a breath left in him. All kinds of flaws were written on the book. Lu Qiang's meridians had been crushed by the other party's Zhizuan realm Xinqi, and his internal organs had also suffered heavy damage. Under such conditions, anyone else would have been dead. However, having cultivated the Heaven's Path Golden Body and Poison Body, Lu Qiang's body was several times stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator. On top of that, Zhang Xian had infused his Heaven's Path Xinqi into the other party timely, thus preserving a final breath within him. I should heal his meridians and internal organs first. Having assimilated all the knowledge within the books in the Physician Guild, even without the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhang Xian's medical skill wasn't inferior to that of a 3-star physician. He knew that the priority at hand was to heal the other party's injuries first. Thus, he immediately directed his Heaven's Path Xinqi to flow throughout the other party's body, healing his damaged meridians and organs. At the same time, he fed the other party a recovery pill. Having ransacked the Lin clan, he had many of such recovery pills within his storage ring. If it was effective, he was willing to feed all of them to him. Zhang Xian, seeing spirit returning to the young man, and that he was starting to treat Lu Qiang, Mou heaved a sigh of relief. Then, lowering her head to take a look, her eyes narrowed. Under the application of Zhang Xian's Xinqi, Lu Qiang's wounds recovered at a visible pace. His pale face, due to excessive loss of blood, also slowly regained its redness. Even though he was still unconscious, his wounds seemed to have already fully recovered on the surface. Healing a person's body thoroughly with just Xinqi. Mou's body trembled in disbelief. Even though she had seen Zhang Xian's medical skills before, he had often made use of silver needles to stimulate one's acupoints before issuing prescriptions to follow up. To be able to heal one's injuries and repair one's meridians like that, how pure must his Xinqi be? Could he possess superior Xinqi? The thought flashed across Mou's eyes. It was said that due to the absurd purity of superior jinqi, it could be used in treatment or clearing away blockages in a person's meridians all along. Mou thought that it was only a legend. To think that there would come a day which she would see such a sight with her own eyes. To possess cultivation technique capable of cultivating jinqi of such caliber, how powerful must Yang Shi be? It was no wonder why Su Shi and Ling Shi would obey his commands willingly. Who? After repairing the final injury on Lu Chang's meridians, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Zhang Xian refreshed the book on Lu Chong, and with a single look, his face steeled. Teacher, how is Lu Chong? Xiaoya asked worriedly. There isn't any problem with his physical condition, but his consciousness has sunk into a deep sleep. It's hard to tell when he'll be able to wake up. The damage Lu Chong had suffered previously was too tremendous. Even if the unparalleled Heaven's Path Jinqi could heal all of his injuries, it was completely helpless as to his mental condition. Under the current situation, it was possible that Lu Chong might awake any time, perhaps even at the next instant, but it was also possible that he might never wake up. What should we do? Xiaoya asked. I don't know either. Zhang Xian shook his head in desolation. Even though he had taken in all of the knowledge within the books of the Physician Guild for his own, he still wasn't able to find a solution to this situation. Blocked meridians, afflictions, inability to break through one's cultivation bottleneck, the Heaven's Path Jinqi could cure all of those. However, consciousness was a matter of one's soul. It was something incredibly unfathomable and hard to grasp. No matter how formidable Heaven's Path Jinqi was, how could something physical affect the ethereal? We might not have any solutions, but Yang Shi might have an idea. Seeing the awful look on the young man's face, Mou consoled. Yang Shi. Zhang Xian's complexion turned even more awful. I've heard that upon reaching 7-star, master teachers would be capable of using one's words to influence one's actions, consciousness, and soul. Lu Chong has only fallen into a deep sleep. If a master teacher of such a level were to delve into his mind and wake him up, Lu Chong might regain consciousness. Mou continued. Influence one's consciousness and soul. Zhang Xian clenched his fists tightly together. It was just like what the other party had said. Lu Chang's consciousness was just asleep. If someone could delve into his mind and wake him up, it was possible that Lu Chong might regain consciousness. Even though I've only heard it from others, it's true that high-ranked master teachers possess unfathomable means beyond us. We might be unable to find a solution now, but it doesn't mean that there isn't one, Mou replied. You're right. Zhang Xian nodded. It was just like his innate fetal poison. Even though he didn't find a solution for it in Tianxian Kingdom or the Poison Hall, there was definitely one out there in the vast world, in one of the innumerable master-teacher pavilion. Even though it was like searching for a needle in a haystack, at least it gave him a direction. He was helpless toward Lu Chang's current situation, but as he grew stronger and read more books, he might be able to find a solution to his problem. I'll eventually find a solution to cure him, but before that, after hearing Mou's words of consolation, Zhang Xian felt at ease. But soon, he narrowed his eyes, and killing intent burst from his body, drowning the entire sky in it as though a torrent. I will avenge him. Chapter 413, Xuanyuan Kingdom's Strength. As a person born in the Information Age, Zhang Xian was brought up to settle conflicts peacefully. Despite having transcended into this world, a part of him was still resistant to claiming the lives of others. However, who knew that a moment of benevolence would ultimately lead to Lu Chang's state? If only he had known, he would have gotten little Su to get rid of this Lin Long and Commander Liang, and today's matter wouldn't have occurred. Avenge? Mou frowned. Lu Chong has to be avenged, but do you know anything about Xuanyuan Kingdom? Zhang Xian shook his head. As a lower-ranked kingdom, Tianwu Kingdom didn't have much information on Xuanyuan Kingdom. As such, Zhang Xian's understanding of Xuanyuan Kingdom was also severely limited. He knew some brief details, but when it came to the more confidential matters, it blurred out. Thus, even after reading through all of the books in the book collection vault, his understanding toward this conferred kingdom was still vague. At the very least, in terms of national strength and influence, he knew very little about Xuanyuan Kingdom. Despite not knowing anything, you wish to avenge him? Mou rolled her eyes. You sure are courageous. The person you are facing is the crown prince of Xuanyuan Kingdom. To make things worse, the current emperor is ill, making the crown prince a person who can ascend to the throne at any moment. As such, he already possesses the authority over the troops in the country, and he can deploy all of them against you. Putting aside how many troops there are in a conferred kingdom, just the number of experts in their midst makes it in existence impossible for you to succeed by charging in alone. Unless you possess the cultivation equivalent to Su Shi. But even with this kind of strength, you will surely meet with all kinds of obstructions when trying to kill a crown prince of a country. To earn considerable prestige and standing in Xuanyuan Kingdom, one must at least reach Zhizuan Realm intermediate stage. Even though you are able to match up to even half Zhizuan cultivators at the moment, you are still lacking as compared to real Zhizuan Realm experts. After a moment of hesitation, Mou explained with a slightly lighter tone. The young man before her had just lost his student. She was afraid of agitating him into doing something atrocious. It's not just lacking, it's being completely helpless against Zhizuan Realm expert. Zhang Xian fell into contemplation. Zhizuan Realm was the highest level a fighter could reach. At the intermediate stage, one would possess 20,000 ding of strength. At the advanced stage, 30,000 ding, and at the pinnacle, 40,000 ding. Taking into consideration Zhang Xian's physical strength and Jinqi's strength, his total strength only added up to around 15,000 ding. He was still a long way from comparing up to the more powerful Zhizuan Realm cultivators. On top of that, he was only using strength as a comparison. After reaching Zhizuan Realm, one's reaction speed and comprehension toward battle techniques would rise significantly. That was also the main reason why no Zongshi could match up to a Zhizuan. It's good that you know. My suggestion is that since the Master Teacher Tournament is going to be held in 3 months' time, it's best for you not to get involved in such trouble at the moment. As long as you join the tournament and get a good placing, with your newfound standing, you'll be able to request the Master Teacher Pavilion to avenge Lu Qiang. At the same moment, no one would be able to say anything about it. This is the most convenient and easiest way at the moment. Mou shared her thoughts. Zhang Xian's cultivation was currently lacking. If he were to forcefully try to exact vengeance, he would be putting himself in huge danger. Since that was the case, he might as well go for the Master Teacher Tournament first. By then, with his prestigious standing gained from the tournament, no one would dare to stop him from avenging Lu Qiang. Master teachers possessed high standing, but that was relative. 2-star master teachers were a formidable existence in Tianwu Kingdom, but when it came to Xuanyuan Kingdom and the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, they didn't mean much at all. Only when one proved their strength or unlimited potential would one be highly regarded and feared. Otherwise, no amount of words would carry weight. I can't wait for 3 months, and I believe that Lu Qiang doesn't want me to wait either. Glancing at his unconscious student, a sharp glint flashed across Zhang Xian's eyes. 3 months was too long, Zhang Xian's wouldn't be able to hold back his rage for that long. The other party had reduced Lu Qiang into such a tragic state, and he still had to leave him carefree for 3 months. You must be joking. But your current strength isn't even at half Zhizuan Realm yet, how do you intend to exact vengeance? You would require the strength of a Zhizuan Realm pinnacle at minimum to do so. Otherwise, you'll just be killed. Seeing the determination in Zhang Xian's eyes, Mou panicked. What was wrong with this fellow? I have already told you that even Zhizuan Realm experts dare not do anything in Xuanyuan Kingdom, so what in the world does a person like you, who hasn't even reached half Zhizuan yet, hope to achieve there? Aren't you just courting death? One must know that there was a huge bunch of Zhizuan realm pinnacle experts within a conferred kingdom. If one wanted to go against the royal family, one had to be at least a half transcension. Zhizuan realm pinnacle. Simple. Zhang Xian said. Simple. Could it be that you have an idea in mind? Seeing Zhang Xian's confident declaration, Mou's eyes lit up. Seems like he has his own plans. I am probably overthinking it after all. How can a genius act so rashly? Just as Mou heaved a long sigh of relief and prepared to ask Zhang Xian about his plans, the young man before him declared gravely, I'll just have to reach Zhizuan realm pinnacle in the next few days then. Pooh! Mou's body swayed, and she nearly choked on her saliva. The heck? Can you say anything more ridiculous than that? Zhizuan realm is the last trial a fighter has to undergo, and the difficulty in progressing in that realm is multiple folds higher than that of Zhongshe realm. Do you think that it's like cabbages in the market, easily obtainable? Reach Zhizuan realm in the next few days, can't you speak normally? If those who are stuck in Zhongshe realm pinnacle heard your words, they would definitely pummel you to death. And to think that I thought you had a good idea in mind, to think this would be it, Xiaoya, hurry up and persuade your teacher. Unable to stand it any longer, Mou turned to the lady beside her. Persuade? Teacher is right, why should I persuade him? Xiaoya asked doubtfully, as she stared at Mou. Mou flew into a frenzy, that's Zhizuan realm, Zhizuan. It's not that easy to achieve a breakthrough as you all think. Even if your teacher were to dedicate the entire 3 months to his cultivation, it would be impossible for him to reach Zhizuan realm. Teacher only used a month to advance from Pixue realm to Zhongshe realm pinnacle. In fact, when he just arrived at Tianwu royal city, he was only at Tongxian realm pinnacle. However, he's already at Zhongshe realm pinnacle now, and it has only been 10 days since then. Don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. Xiaoya consoled. They'd seen all kinds of miracles occurring due to their teacher, and this had left them with deep trust in him. Putting aside reaching Zhizuan realm pinnacle, even if Zhang Xian claimed that he would reach transcendent mortal realm tomorrow, they would surely believe it. How big a matter is it, must you react so vehemently? Mou. What the heck was with all of them? Not only were they not shocked by Zhang Xian's declaration to reach Zhizuan realm pinnacle in just a few days, they even felt that it was natural. Mou hurriedly turned her gaze to Xuanyuan, Wang Ying, and the others. However, all she saw was their looks of disdain, as though mocking her for her horizons being too narrow. Unable to hold back the agitation in her heart, Mou spurted blood. To think that I, the princess of Tianwu kingdom and a one-star master teacher, would be looked down on by a bunch of students. What in the world is this? But thinking about it, their words did make sense. The fellow before her couldn't be understood through common sense. When he took the master teacher examination, he had barely reached Zhongshe realm. Yet, when he faced the Lin clan, he was already at Zhongshe realm pinnacle. There was only an interval of 6 to 7 days between the two events. If he could advance into Zhongshe realm that swiftly, then perhaps he might be able to do the same for Zhizuan realm as well. Even if you reach Zhizuan realm pinnacle, Ding Mu is still the crown prince of Xuanyuan kingdom. If you were to kill him, it might cause instability within the country. I'm afraid that the master teacher pavilion will hinder you. Mou said, while forcefully suppressing her bursting frustration from being looked down on. Hinder? Isn't the Master Teacher Pavilion supposed to protect Master Teachers? Baffled, Zhang Xian frowned. The Master Teacher Pavilion was an organization created by Master Teachers for Master Teachers. Given that the other party had attempted to assassinate a Master Teacher, even if the Master Teacher Pavilion chose not to crack down on the culprit, how could it defend the culprit? The Master Teacher Pavilion does protect the welfare of Master Teachers, but if a conferred kingdom is involved, the matter becomes uncertain. After all, if a crown prince of a kingdom of such level were to be killed, it would definitely cause a tremendous chaos in the country. Perhaps, it might even result in war. the death of innocent civilians, and displacement of population. In order to prevent this kind of situation, it is highly likely that the Master-Teacher Pavilion might choose the other party over you. After all, you are only a 2-star primary master teacher, so you don't wield sufficient weight yet, Mou continued. Besides, the Xuanyuan Kingdom Master-Teacher Pavilion is close with the royal family. As an outsider, it's likely that you'll be shunned instead. This Zhang Xian fell into deep contemplation. Even though Mou's words were frustrating, he had to admit that they made sense. The purpose of the presence of master-teacher pavilions was to maintain peace in the region. Given that Zhang Xian was going to kill Xuanyuan Kingdom's crown prince, it would be hard for the master-teacher pavilion to simply watch by the side. Besides, no matter how impartial the master-teacher pavilion was, the Xuanyuan royal family had been in power for innumerable years. Along with the passing of time, they had established close ties with one another. With the identity of an outsider 2-star master teacher, it was indeed difficult for him to get them to his side. Rules are impartial, but humans have feelings. That's indeed a problem. Upon thinking of all of these, Zhang Xian nodded. Then, turning to Mou, he asked, "Isn't there any solution for this matter?" "There is, just that it's too difficult." Mou shook her head. "Oh. If you want to stop the Xuanyuan Kingdom Master-Teacher Pavilion from hindering you, or even support you, you have to impress them with your capability." Mou said. "Impress them with my capability? You mean pavilion crashing?" Zhang Xian was taken aback. If one wanted the Master-Teacher Pavilion to submit to one swiftly, there was only a single method. That was pavilion crashing. It was similar to dojo crashing. With the strength of an individual, one would face the entire Master-Teacher Pavilion. Once one succeeded, regardless of how strong one was or what requests one had, the Master-Teacher Pavilion was to obey without any conditions. This matter was written within the books of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, and upon Mou's reminder, he recalled it. "That's right, I'm referring to pavilion crashing." However, the Master of Xuanyuan Kingdom's Master-Teacher Pavilion is a 3-star Master Teacher, and his strength has reached half-transcension. Without the strength and capability of a 4-star Master Teacher, it'll be impossible for you to succeed in the pavilion crashing. Mou explained patiently. The Master and Elders of Xuanyuan Kingdom's Master-Teacher Pavilion had all reached 3-star, and they possessed fearsome cultivation to match it. Pavilion crashing consisted of tests of all fields. It was similar to pill debate. Without sufficient strength and knowledge, it was impossible for one to succeed. If they know what's better for them, they'll choose not to interfere in this matter, but if they insist on protecting that crown prince, Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed, and he clenched his fists tightly, then, I don't mind crashing it. Chapter 414, Xuanyuan's beast Hall. Lu Qiang could even disregard his own life for him. As his teacher, what could he not give up for the other party? So what if he had to face a conferred kingdom? So what if he had to face off against a Master-Teacher Pavilion? Lu Qiang, don't worry. Regardless of who the other party is, to dare to reduce you to such a state, as your teacher, I will make him regret his actions. Fine. Knowing that it was impossible to persuade the fellow before her, Mou shook her head helplessly, and decided not to harp on this issue. So, what do you intend to do now? I'll head to Xuanyuan Kingdom. Zhang Xian replied. At the same time, he whistled, and the air current above suddenly grew chaotic. The steel Fang howling firmament beast whizzed over from the distant sky and landed right before him. Only in Xuanyuan Kingdom would he be able to find sufficient Jizuan realm cultivation technique manuals for him to grow stronger swiftly. If he were to remain in Tianwu Kingdom, his strength would just stagnate. Just like Mou said, without sufficient strength, it was impossible for him to accomplish anything at all. He might even lose his life due to it. Xuanyuan Kingdom's capital, Xuanyuan Royal City, is a few 100,000 kilometers away from here. Given the steel Fang howling firmament beast's half-Xuanyuan realm strength, even if it were to fly with all of its strength, it would take at least 7 to 8 days. Mou replied. As a conferred kingdom, Xuanyuan Kingdom's territory was significantly larger than Tianwu Kingdom. Taking 7 to 8 days to travel to its capital from here could already be considered fast. 7 to 8 days? Zhang Xian was taken aback. That was already around the duration he had stayed in Tianwu Royal City. Mou nodded, indeed. This is already the limit of a half-Xuanyuan realm savage beast. Well, if it reaches Xuanyuan realm, it would only take 3 days. Otherwise, we can only go over like that. Half-Xuanyuan realm and Xuanyuan realm was only a small leap in one's cultivation stage, but for an aerial savage beast, it meant more than a twofold increase in its flying speed. Xuanyuan realm aerial savage beasts can travel that quickly? Then, I'll raise its cultivation realm then, Zhang Xian nodded. Raise its cultivation realm? Mou flashed a bitter smile. She'd almost forgotten it. On top of being a genius master teacher, the fellow before her was a formidable beast tamer as well. Even until now, she had been unable to make sense of the beast pummeling taming method that the other party created. She couldn't understand how it could make savage beasts obedient to one, and why it would induce a breakthrough in them. Lifting her head to take a look, she saw that the young man before her had already gotten into action. He walked over to the steel Fang howling firmament beast and smashed his fist onto it. Peng 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 peng. If it was any other beast tamer, it would be impossible for them to punch their tamed beasts so fearlessly. Even if a contract had been established between them, such an action could easily incur the other party's resentment, and this may turn out to be a potential threat in the future. Yet, when Zhang Xian's fist landed on the savage beast, the huge fellow howled in delight. A euphoric expression slowly surfaced on its face as it lay motionless on the ground. To react in such a way while being pummeled, that savage beast was truly one-of-kind boom. After a moment of pummeling, the steel Fang howling firmament beast released a piercing howl, and it broke through its bottleneck. In an instant, its aura surged and pierced through the clouds. Xuanyuan realm. Upon reaching a whole new realm, the howling firmament beast's physique grew larger, and its movements became sharper. The group climbed onto the back of the savage beast, and after ascertaining the direction, it started flying toward the horizon. Sitting cross-legged in the room on the back of the steel Fang howling firmament beast, Zhang Xian recalled the events from earlier. Due to the dire circumstances then, all that was on his mind then was to kill Yang Qingming. And somehow, the golden book suddenly appeared and crushed him to death. Could it be that the Book of Heaven's Path also possessed the ability to smash someone to death? When he first obtained the Library of Heaven's Path, he thought that while others were throwing out all kinds of mystic treasures, he would end up hurling books at others to think that it was true. Recalling the might of the book, Zhang Xian was awed. For a Xuanyuan realm advanced stage expert to be smashed into a lump of meat in an instant, the might of the attack was already beyond that of ordinary transcendent mortal realm experts. In other words, even Su Shi would have been unable to withstand that attack. Fearsome. But it's a one-time consumable. Zhang Xian shook his head helplessly. The move was indeed strong, but it depleted the golden pages within the Book of Heaven's Path, and with that, he had no golden pages left. It seemed like he would have to bring in more students, win their gratitude, and produce a few more golden pages for his own security. To be able to assimilate the content of the books in the Library of Heaven's Path into his own knowledge, raise his soul depth by 5.0 instantaneously, destroy an enemy far beyond one's cultivation realm. Zhang Xian had only discovered 3 uses of the golden page, but every single one of them was fearsome in their own right. If he could gather sufficient golden pages, he wouldn't have to fear anyone anymore. He could just toss a book at anyone who dares to provoke him. Judging from how long the golden book was materialized, there seems to be a time limit of 10 seconds. He tried to recall the details of the previous battle. Seeing Lu Chong being impaled right before him had clouded Zhang Xian's mind, so he didn't think much into the details then. However, now that he had calmed down, he was able to deduce some matters by analyzing the situation. This Book of Heaven's Path could be summoned at Zhang Xian's will to smash his enemies. However, after leaving the Library of Heaven's Path, it could only sustain itself for around 10 breaths or so before disappearing. If not for this time limit, Dingmu wouldn't have been able to escape. This book could even smash transcendent mortal experts to death, needless to say, those two fellows. After going through soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy, my soul depth has increased considerably. Looking at Kong Shi's personal handwriting had sent him into a unique state that nourished his mind. If not for the lapse in his awareness due to that, with the Heaven's Path movement art, it would be difficult for even a Xuanyuan realm expert to kill him. My soul depth has reached 12. 1. That's sufficient for me to take the 4-star Master Teacher examination. Even though the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy only managed to work for a short period of time, given that it was induced by Kong Shi's handwriting, it still granted him a huge growth in his soul depth, raising it by 1. 0. Given that the examination requirement on one's soul depth increased by 3. 0 for each tier, Zhang Xian's soul depth was already sufficient for him to take the 4-star Master Teacher examination. With the rise in my soul depth, my eye of insight has also grown significantly stronger. In the past, I could only peer into the essence of cultivators possessing the same level or weaker cultivation than me, but now, I can easily see the flaws and problems of even a half-Xuanyuan. As Zhang Xian's soul depth reached 12. 1. The level of a 4-star Master Teacher, his eye of insight also enjoyed a qualitative improvement. Given his cultivation realm of Zongshi realm pinnacle, it was impossible for him to peer into the flaws of a half-Xuanyuan in the past. But now, even if an expert of that level were to appear before him, Zhang Xian would still be able to see through his flaws easily even without the Library of Heaven's Path. The Library of Heaven's Path was formidable, but it had many flaws. For example, it required one to execute his battle technique or be unconscious before a book on one would be compiled. On the other hand, just by expending some of one's soul depth, the eye of insight allowed one to peer into another's flaws. In a sense, it was much more practical and applicable than the Library of Heaven's Path. Not only so, the efficacy of my impartation of Heaven's will has also improved significantly. Currently, Zhang Xian had comprehended a total of 2 unique abilities of Master Teachers. The Eye of Insight and Impartation of Heaven's Will. Through the impartation of Heaven's Will, by expending his soul depth, Zhang Xian could easily induce trust in another. On top of that, he could also drive another person's cultivation through his words. In the past, the impartation of Heaven's Will only influenced cultivators who were much weaker than him. But now, he would be able to influence those of the same cultivation realm as him, Zongshi realm pinnacle, through words alone. All in all, the benefits that he derived from the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy were substantial. However, they were mainly limited to the Master Teacher abilities, it didn't contribute to his cultivation or any other aspects. All of you, show me your battle techniques. After sorting out his current state, Zhang Xian turned to look at Zhao Ye and the others. It had been a while since he had last given them guidance. Even though they had improved swiftly, it was clear that they were unable to keep up with Zhang Xian's footsteps. Thus, it was imperative for Zhang Xian to pull up their cultivation so that they could at least fend for themselves. Yes. On the broad back of the savage beast, the group demonstrated their battle techniques, and Zhang Xian offered them pointers one by one. 3 days passed in a flash. After Zhang Xian's guidance, the group's cultivation rose significantly. Wang Ying, Zhen Yang, and the others reached Pixue realm, and even Yuan Tao, whose cultivation was often lagging behind the others, had managed to open one acupoint. By unleashing the potential of her unique constitution, Zhao Ye even managed to reach Zongshi realm advanced stage. With the purine body and Heaven's Path sword art, she would be a match for even typical Zongshi realm pinnacle experts. Zhang Xian also offered Mo some guidance, and the latter improved significantly as well. Why aren't we heading to Xuanyuan Royal City? After consecutive days of flight, just when the capital was in sight, Zhang Xian suddenly commanded the howling firmament beast to steer toward another direction, heading toward the mountain range not too far away. I need a place to raise my strength, replied Zhang Xian calmly, looking out of the window. Raise your strength? Mou blinked in confusion. Seeing how adamant Zhang Xian was at avenging Lu Qiang, Mou thought that he would cultivate hard in these 3 days so that he could at least reach half Xuanyuan. Yet, other than offering them guidance and taking care of Lu Qiang, he didn't even bother cultivating at all. And only when he was close to reaching the capital did he suddenly speak of raising his strength. Did this fellow require some unique location for his cultivation? The Beast Hall. Zhang Xian explained. After reading through all of the books in Tianwu Kingdom, even though Zhang Xian had yet to get a good grasp of the various powers located within Xuanyuan Kingdom, at the very least, he managed to find information on the locations of the occupation guilds. Similar to that of the Xianluo Mountain Range Beast Hall, Xuanyuan Kingdom's Beast Hall wasn't in the city either. It was located in the depths of the mountain range several dozen kilometers away from the capital. Beast Hall. You're going there to raise your cultivation? Hearing the location, Mou was even more perplexed. She had heard of savage beasts visiting the Beast Hall to raise their strength, but she didn't know that it applied for humans as well. Could it be that his cultivation technique required the presence of savage beasts? Just as Zhang Xian was heading for the Beast Hall in the small town located in the vast area controlled by the Xuanyuan Kingdom Beast Hall, 3 figures leaped off the back of an aerial savage beast. Of them, 2 were Zhang Xian's acquaintances, Xianluo Mountain Range Beast Hall's Hall Master Feng and Beast Tamer Wang. A man in his late 20s accompanied them. That man's chest was puffed out, and he had an arrogant look on his face. Beast Tamer Luo, this is the Xuanyuan Kingdom Beast Hall, where the beast taming competition will be held. Hall Master Feng said. I know. Don't worry, a championship, is it? I'll definitely take first place for you all. Beast Tamer Luo waved his hands casually, as though speaking of an insignificant issue. Hearing the arrogant words of the other party, Hall Master Feng and Beast Tamer Wang exchanged glances, and a bitter smile flashed across their faces. This Beast Tamer Luo was one of the more talented beast tamers in Xianluo Mountain Range Beast Hall, but he was, by no means, the most talented one. If not for the competition being brought forward by 4 months, and the fact that they were unable to find the candidate they had chosen, Zhang Xian, they would have never brought this fellow over. Since the Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast had been taken by that fellow, the group could only travel here on a Zhongshe Realm Savage Beast. Due to its limited speed, it took them more than a month to arrive here, and all of them were wearied by the long journey. More than a month ago, Zhang Xian had still been looking for the Poison Hall. Since he wasn't even at Tianwu Royal City yet, they were unable to find him. Why? You don't trust my capability? Why do you keep mentioning that Zhang Xian? He's a 2-star beast tamer, but so am I. He passed the examination on his first try, but so did I. In fact, I even did better than him. How can you be so confident in him and yet doubt me? Seeing the expressions of the duo, Beast Tamer Luo flung his hands in displeasure. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.